Chapter 695. The first Good Voice concert held by Zhidong Satellite TV station is equivalent to the celebration of the Voice of China. According to the established rules, a concert will be held after every season of The Voice. The main force of the concert is 4 mentors, the top 10 students and 3 special guests. The duration of the concert is about 3 hours. For the top 10 students of The Voice, they are both obligated and necessary to participate in this concert. And Anxin is the champion of The Voice of China. This concert is an excellent opportunity for her to show her face. There is absolutely no reason to miss it, not to mention the agreement with Zhidong Satellite TV station. However, she broke the promise. What's going on? Lu Chen was very surprised. Although because of the signing problem, Qinfei Media, which he represented, had a conflict with Anxin. But if Anxin did not participate in the Voice concert because of this, it would be incredible. Or did she want to frame Qinfei Media, saying that he and Qinfei are deliberately suppressed and did not let Anxin play? Isn't this too ridiculous? Tian said with a wry smile. She's in the hospital. Anxin was hospitalized in Beijing. The cause was gastric bleeding and mild alcoholism, drinking too much. And it was not caused by others' persuasion. It was the result of her drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Tian said, her assistant called me. She said that Anxin had a falling out with her agent. She's very regretful now. She said that she shouldn't have believed the agent's nonsense and put herself in a difficult situation. So that was the case. Lu Chen understood and sighed and said, then I'll talk to the company and send someone to visit. Anxin is not bad in nature, and her singing talent is really excellent. Otherwise it would be impossible to win the championship of The Voice. It's just that the sudden huge attention made her mentally unbalanced for a while, coupled with the agent's urging, so she made a mistake step by step. Before coming to Hangzhou, Lu Chen learned from Zhonghua Automobile that Zhonghua Automobile had given up asking Anxin to endorse their new model, and this endorsement contract was prepared to be completed by Tong Xinyao, who had just signed with Qinfei Media. Undoubtedly, Zhonghua Motors made such a decision after learning that Qinfei Media refused to sign Anxin, which has a lot to do with Lu Chen, because Lu Chen is the biggest and best star ambassador of Zhonghua Motors, and the two sides have a very good cooperative relationship. In Lu Chen's new drama You from the Star, Zhonghua Automobile is the only car brand with advertising implantation. With the help of this mythical TV series, it has gained a wave of popularity. Especially the male lead's car, the Chunghua Jinqi GPK 350, whose sales had increased several times in half a month. With such a background, it's normal for Zhonghua Automobile to give up Anxin. Without Lu Chen's support, Anxin can't support the brand of Zhonghua Automobile. She doesn't even have her own works. In comparison, Tong Xinyao, who replaced Anxin to join Qinfei Media, was undoubtedly the best choice. In terms of appearance, Tong Xinyao was much better than Anxin. Lu Chen put himself in Anxin's shoes. If he were Anxin, he would probably be depressed too. It should be known that the endorsement contract of Zhonghua Automobile can not only improve one's status, but also bring rich benefits. But because of a wrong decision, it turned into a bubble which no one could accept. It's not strange for her to drown her sorrows in alcohol, but she drank a little too much. I used to despise her, ungrateful, Tian sighed and said, but now I feel a little sorry for her. I heard from her assistant that she had fired her agent. She would rather go to court than continue to make mistakes. She was very clear about the cause and effect of the whole thing, and she really felt sorry for Anxin. Because of Qinfei, Tian had gotten to know Anxin when they were working on the soundtrack. Therefore, Anxin had her personal phone number, and her assistant had called her to ask for leave. Senyu? Lu Chen's lips curled up into a sneer. Senyu's side is probably going to jump up and down. But at this point, if an Xian really shed all pretense of cordiality and made things bigger, it's estimated that Senyu's side will have a headache. It was unlikely to go to court, but it was not a problem to terminate the contract. After all, Anxin's commercial value had decreased a lot. Senyu went for wool and came home shorn. She had really shot herself in the foot. After thinking about it, Lu Chen took his cell phone and found a number from his address book. The other side quickly picked up. Hey big star, how come you have time to call me? The voice of the other side was very soft, with a kind of resentful tone, like a woman who was abandoned by Lu Chen. Lu Chen was speechless. He paused and said, Mr. Su, I have something serious to talk to you about. He called Su Qingmei, the director of Light Rain Media. Speaking of which, Lu Chen and Su Qingmei had known each other for a long time, much earlier than Qinfei. Su Qingmei had a good eye for talent. When Lu Chen was singing at Forget Grass Bar, she had the intention to sign him. Unfortunately, she was only willing to give Lu Chen a rookie contract, and in the end she missed out on a real potential stock. Actually, with Su Qingmei's situation at that time, if Su Qingmei could take out a generous contract to tempt Lu Chen, he might really sign it. Anyway, it was fate that brought them together. Light Rain Media later signed the Bionics and made a name for themselves in the industry. They had always been working with the original Lu Chen studio. Hearing Lu Chen talk about serious business, Su Qingmei immediately became more serious. "What's up?" When she first met Lu Chen, she looked down on Lu Chen, but now she was almost looking up to him. She could joke a little but not too much. Lu Chen asked, "Anshin, do you know about it?" Su Qingmei was surprised. The champion of the Voice of China? As someone in the industry, she was very well informed. "I heard that she fell out with you guys because of the contract?" Lu Chen did not deny it, but simply explained Anshin's current situation. Su Qingmei was very smart and immediately understood. "You want us to sign Anshin?" Lu Chen smiled. "Anyway, that's what happened. It's up to you guys to decide whether to sign it or not." Su Qingmei said without hesitation, "Of course we'll sign it." As the champion of the Voice of China, Anshin's popularity was currently very high. Even if the contract signing incident had a great impact, if nothing had happened, Light Rain Media would not have had a chance. It was practically a free lunch. Lu Chen said, "Then contact my sister, you can come with me to visit her." Su Qingmei said happily, "Thank you, I'll treat you to a meal when we get back to Beijing." Lu Chen laughed involuntarily. He was about to hang up when he heard Su Qingmei say, "Lu Chen, you are a good person." Chapter 696. You're such a nice guy. This was the second nice guy card that Lu Chen had received today. It was a gift from Chen Fei. Of course, it wasn't really a nice guy card. Chen Fei's eyes were full of tenderness and charm. Lu Chen sighed, "Maybe. But it's hard to be a nice guy now. I hope Anshin can learn from her mistakes." He knew that Anshin came from a poor family and had to work to support her family at a young age. Life was hard for her. It was understandable that she wanted a better contract with Chen Fei Media. People who had experienced real hardship often sought a sense of security. Anshin just wanted to give herself enough security so that she could leave her past life. That was why she was persuaded by her agent to play so many tricks with Senyu. Of course, Lu Chen could understand her and forgive her, but he wouldn't sign her back to Chen Fei Media. Although she was willing to do that, it would go against Lu Chen's principles. Out of sympathy and understanding, Lu Chen recommended her to Su Qingmei. Joining Light Rain Media was a good choice for Anshin. Light Rain Media had a good reputation in the industry and its performance was excellent. Her talent wouldn't be wasted. That was all Lu Chen could do for her. After calling Su Qingmei, he told Chen Fei, everything. Chen Fei, listened to Lu Chen quietly. Then she held his hand and gave him a sweet kiss. She said, "I hope you have a clear conscience." Lu Chen nodded his head and smiled at Chen Fei. Everything was said without words. That was the end of the matter. That night, Chen Fei received a call from Anshin in the hospital. She was sobbing on the phone. In the afternoon, Lu Shi and Su Qingmei went to the hospital where Anshin was staying to express their sympathy and goodwill from Lu Chen and Chen Fei. Anshin was very touched. She accepted their goodwill and decided to sign with Light Rain Media. She felt sorry for them. Also, she couldn't make it to the concert. Chen Fei didn't say much. She just comforted Anshin and hung up. As she said, it was good to have a clear conscience. The next day, August 30th, was the day of the Sing, China's All-Stars concert. For the audience of the Voice of China, they have been waiting for this concert featuring Lu Chen, Chen Fei, Shi Fang, Liao Jiayan and the top 10 students of the Voice of China for a long time. Finally, they got what they wanted. The tickets for the concert were basically sold out a month ago. The price of the most common seats was 388 yuan, and the best VIP seats were 5,888 yuan. But it still couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the fans. In the morning, Lu Chen drove to Hangzhou High-Speed Rail Station. At 10 o'clock, he saw a familiar figure in the bustling crowd outside the passenger passage. Xiao Shui. The girl with the bag on her back heard his shout and immediately ran over excitedly. "Brother." Although Lu Chen was wearing a pair of big sunglasses, Lu Shui recognized him immediately. She smiled happily. The people around them couldn't help but look at the brother and sister who had been separated for a long time. But Lu Chen couldn't leave immediately. His mother, Fang Yun, had come with Fang Yun. Fortunately, Fang Yun quickly followed. Lu Chen quickly took her luggage and walked to the parking area. If they didn't leave, they would be recognized. Lu Shui held Lu Chen's arm and chattered all the way. The summer vacation was coming to an end. But this time she came to Hangzhou with Fang Yun mainly to watch the concert tonight. Lu Chen specially reserved 3 VIP seats for his family. The other one was for Lu Shi. Lu Shi's flight was in the afternoon. Then the family could really reunite. For this, Fang Yun specially asked for leave from work. She would stay in Hangzhou until Sunday and then return to Binhai. "Hello, Auntie," Chen Fei was waiting in the parking area. She didn't dare to go to the exit with Lu Chen, because the probability of them being recognized at the same time was big. It was easy to cause chaos at that time. Similar situations had happened many times. It could be considered the trouble of being a star. Seeing Chen Fei, her future daughter-in-law, Fang Yun was very happy. She took her hand and asked about her well-being, which made Chen Fei blush and feel a little embarrassed. Then Lu Chen drove the family to their new home in Hangzhou. It was the first time for Fang Yun to come to the new home, so she visited it up and down with great interest. Fang Yun was very satisfied. She said to Lu Chen, "This house is very good. It will be your new house in the future." Lu Chen smiled and pretended not to understand the meaning of his mother's words. However, Fang Yun didn't give Lu Chen a chance to play tricks. She pulled Chen Fei over and said earnestly, "Originally, I shouldn't interfere in the affairs of you young people. But since you two really love each other, don't delay it anymore. Even if you don't get married immediately, isn't it better to get engaged first?" Lu Chen and Chen Fei looked at each other. They didn't expect Fang Yun to make it clear directly. Chen Fei secretly pinched Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, "Mom, we have a plan." Fang Yun glared at him and said with disappointment, "What plan? Now tell me. Do you know that a woman's youth is the most important thing? Do you really want to wait until Fei is 30 or 40 years old to get married? Don't you want to have children? At that time, I may not have the strength to take care of your children." His mother finally showed her tail. She specially asked for leave to come to Hangzhou today, not only to see her son and daughter, but also to force them to get married. Chen Fei blushed and couldn't help looking at Lu Chen. She and Lu Chen had a plan, but it obviously couldn't satisfy Fang Yun. Lu Chen made up his mind and said, "Mom, Fei and I will get engaged this year, and we will get married in 2 years." He thought about it and made up his mind. Fang Yun was a little satisfied and said, "Remember what you said. Don't go back on your words when the time comes." Lu Chen couldn't help rubbing his nose and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Mom, am I so untrustworthy?" Fang Yun rolled her eyes at him and then pulled Chen Fei to talk about their family. She probably wanted to establish the relationship between her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law as soon as possible. In the afternoon, Lu Chen went to the airport to bring Lu Shi home. The family was finally reunited. After dinner, everyone rushed to Huanglong Stadium together. China's Sing All-Stars concert would officially begin at 7:45 p.m. Chapter 697. Night slowly fell, and the clear night sky was dotted with stars. The Huanglong Stadium, which could accommodate 75,000 spectators, was packed to the brim. As the video on the main screen lit up, cheers surged out like a tidal wave. Although there was still nearly an hour before The Voice's official start, the vast majority of the audience had already arrived at the venue ahead of time, especially the fans who could not wait to raise their respective fluorescent signage and glow sticks high up in the air, using their own unique methods to express their enthusiasm. Looking around the stadium, most of the fluorescent signage with Lu Chen and Chen Fei's names lit up, followed by Shi Fang's. Celebrities all had their own fans. If they did not have fans chasing after them, they would not be called a celebrity. There were many types of fans: ordinary fans, passers-by fans, haters, and there were also professional fans. Professional fans were no longer a secret in the entertainment industry. It was just that no one took the initiative to bring up this rather sensitive topic, because many celebrity artists would hire professional fan companies to help them hype up and build momentum. Those that often appeared in the entertainment news section or even the social news section, such as a celebrity's fan beating someone up, or being beaten up, or chasing a celebrity to the point of going crazy, or squatting outside a celebrity's door for 3 days and 3 nights, or crying and fainting on the spot in order to meet someone, etc. In fact, most of them were done by professional fans. This was what they did for a living. By the same logic, a celebrity's concert venue was a world for professional fans. Not only could they get free tickets, but they could also be paid handsomely. Their task was to bring the atmosphere and the rhythm of the ordinary fans, setting off the exuberant popularity of the celebrity. Especially in some highly publicized concert, professional fans who were hired by different celebrities to participate in the concert often came into conflict, and it was not uncommon for them to compete with each other until their heads were bleeding. But Lu Qin, Qin Fei, or Shi Fang and Liao Jia were different. The four of them, or more accurately the companies they signed with, did not hire so-called professional fans to support them. Those who came to the concert venue were all real fans. For example, Lu Qin, although his debut time is only 2 years, but his own spontaneously organized, and then included in the unified management of more than 30 fan support groups, which does not count the number of more small teams. Even 10 Huanglong gymnasiums wouldn't be able to accommodate all the members of the fan club. Therefore, with just Lu Chen's rallying power, it wouldn't be a problem for him to get the tickets for tonight's The Voice of China concert, let alone a group like Qin Fei, Shi Fang and Liao Jia. It was said that on the internet, a normal ticket for The Voice of China had been hyped up to 600 to 700 renminbi. Under such circumstances, who would still need professional fans who were equivalent to extras? Most importantly, the passion that erupted from the true fans was something that even professional fans might not be able to match. No one knew who started shouting Lu Chen's name, but it quickly spread throughout the venue like a plague. Lu Chen. The shouts went from weak to loud, from messy to orderly, converging into a sea of sound, surging in the huge stadium, causing the people in it to involuntarily follow suit. Lu Chen. Lu Chen. Lu Chen. The fans' shouts were so enthusiastic that they even penetrated through the thick barrier and reached the backstage rest area. Lu Qin, Qin Fei, Shi Fang and Liao Jia looked at each other. Liao Jia, who was experienced, immediately laughed and said, "This is a rebellion. Lu Qin, you've committed a grave sin." Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This is also considered my fault? The fans were too enthusiastic, so they couldn't possibly push the blame onto him, right? Did they want him to do something bad to lose some fans? Qin Fei, said seriously, "This is your fault. Tell me, you've already released 2 albums, but have you ever held a concert?" Lu Qin was suddenly speechless. He had debuted for 2 years and released 2 solo albums, but he really hadn't held a solo concert. Shi Fang was very surprised. "No way, you haven't held a concert before?" Shi Fang rarely came to the mainland and didn't know much about the situation there, so she really didn't know the details of Lu Chen's situation. Lu Chen said with a wry smile, "I've only participated in a few platters," speaking of which it was a bit embarrassing. As the most outstanding singer and songwriter in the Chinese music industry, he had not held his first solo concert so far. He was not even as good as many second-tier and third-tier stars. The fans had been calling for a long time. In fact, Lu Chen also wanted to hold one, but he had been busy shooting movies and TV series, so he couldn't make time to hold a special concert. At most, it was a fan meeting. A fan meeting and a solo concert were completely different things. The current cheers were the outburst of his fans' resentment. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, everyone would have waited patiently for the concert to start and would not be so restless. At this time, the door of the VIP lounge was pushed open and Tian rushed in. "Oh!" she shouted, "Lu Qin, hurry up and go out to calm the crowd, otherwise something may really happen." In holding such a large-scale event, the most feared thing was that something might go wrong. Once the fans' emotions got excited, it was easy to go to extremes, so the organizers often had to make all kinds of preparations in advance, including cooperating with the stars to appease the fans. Originally, at this time, the audience should still be entering the venue, and the original plan was to have a non-live song and dance performance to warm up the scene. But now that the warm-up was not needed at all, the plan must be changed to ensure that the subsequent live broadcast went smoothly. Tonight's concert of The Voice of Good Voice was broadcast live by Zhidong Satellite TV station and simulcast live on QQ Video Network. "Then I'll go first," Lu Qin stood up decisively and said to Tian, "You let the working group get ready." Tian quickly said, "There's no problem over there. They will definitely cooperate well." Qin Fei was a little worried. He got up and asked, "Do you want me to go on stage with you?" Lu Qin said with a smile, "It's not that exaggerated. The fans are still very good. I should be fine once I go out." He added, "One man takes responsibility for his own actions." Everyone laughed at once. In fact, it was really not a big deal. Most of the fans, including the live audience, were just blindly following along. Everyone spent so much money to see the Voice of Good Voice concert tonight, and they didn't want to mess it up. Therefore, when Lu Qin appeared on the T-shaped stage, when the bright spotlight hit him, the shouts of the audience turned into cheers. Although they were still very excited, they were no longer manic. Many of the audience had a feeling of finally summoning the boss, so they laughed and clapped hard. It was as if they had just won a great victory. Chapter 698. There were a total of 3 participating in the live broadcast of tonight's first concert of The Voice. The live TV broadcast was naturally arranged by Zhidong Satellite TV. Zhuwei was also the organizer, and the live webcast was QQ Video Plus, Whale TV. Both online platforms have a long-term good relationship with Lu Qin, and it was only natural to win the right to broadcast the Voice concert on the live webcast. Whether it was QQ Video or Whale TV, they have one of the biggest advantages over Zhidong Satellite TV, that is, the webcast can be done several hours in advance, unlike satellite TV which must be limited to a specified time. QQ Video started its live broadcast at 6 o'clock in the evening, and Whale TV was earlier. There was a live picture at 5:35, and a special live broadcast room was also opened. Moreover, this live broadcast room was interlinked with Lu Chen's live broadcast room. It was divided into 2 different angles of live broadcast. Registered members can watch on 2 screens at the same time, so the sense of the scene is even stronger. Because of the advertising in advance, a large number of netizens poured into Whale TV that night, and many fans entered the live broadcast room early. They were also lucky to see Lu Chen more than half an hour in advance. Haha, I really got shouted out. I really want to go to the scene, but unfortunately I didn't buy a ticket, 5,555. It's really a sea of people. The scene is so spectacular. Let's let my chin sing here next time. Sing here +1. Hee hee, if we don't sing now, the opinions of the masses will really be big. It seems that it's already very big now. The barrage in the live broadcast room was like a tide, and most of them were complaining. It could be seen that Lu Chen's fans really had complaints. Especially those of his fans, they didn't know how long they had been looking forward to it, but they were always disappointed. Their emotions broke out at night. Fortunately, Lu Chen came out in time to calm the scene. Good evening everyone, I'm here. As soon as his voice fell, there were all kinds of cheers, screams, whistles and applause. Lu Chen waited for the fans to vent their emotions with a smile on his face, and then continued, now there are still 43 minutes before the start of the Voice concert, so let me make the scene. Sing a few songs for everyone first, what do you think? Okay, this time all the voices were united and they all cheered in unison. Lu Chen waved towards the audience and immediately, a staff member brought over a microphone, a stool and a guitar. Sitting on a stool, Lu Chen held his guitar and said to the microphone, I haven't sung like this for a long time. Actually, I'm very happy today because apart from you guys, my mother and sister are also here. The gymnasium immediately became very quiet, with only Lu Chen's voice echoing. No one would be so insensible as to create interference at this time. Many people looked left and right, trying to find Lu Chen's mother and sister in the crowd. Of course it was all in vain. Lu Chen continued, so tonight's first song I want to give it to my mother first, to thank her for giving me a precious life, raising me and giving me everything I have now. At this moment, Fang Yun and Lu Shui were sitting in the VIP seats in the front row, listening to Lu Chen's confession of affection on stage. Fang Yun's eyes couldn't help but turn red. And the first song that Lu Chen sang was, of course, the song that fans were already familiar with, When You Are Old. When you are old, your hair is white and you are drowsy. When you are old and you can't walk anymore and you take a nap by the fire and you remember your youth. How many loved you in your youth, how many admired your beauty whether they were sincere or fake, but only one person still loves your pious soul. This song was very special among all of Lu Chen's works. It could be sung to lovers and friends as well as relatives and elders. Different people could sing it with different flavors. Therefore, since its birth, it has been covered by many professional and non-professional singers. And among all of Lu Chen's works, When You Are Old has always been at the top of the evaluation. Maybe it was not as popular as You Who Sat Next to Me, and The Brightest Star in the Night Sky, among young people, but it allowed Lu Chen to gain a group of fans with life experience. For Lu Chen's fans, they were also familiar with it. Lu Chen only sang 2 paragraphs and the fans at the scene began to sing. At first there were only a few people singing, but soon it became a collective chorus. Especially when he sang, Only One Person Still Loves Your Devout Soul, Loves the Wrinkles on Your Old Face, the atmosphere of the audience reached a climax, and the scene was really very moving. This is Lu Chen's fans singing together to Lu Chen's mother. They are thanking Lu Chen's mother for giving the world a precious gift. The name of this gift was Lu Chen. When I am old, I really hope that this song is sung for you. Lu Chen's voice was deep with warmth, and the simple guitar accompaniment restored the most authentic taste of the music. It drifted away and gradually returned to plain, leaving a lingering sound. 3 memories from the dream world brought Lu Qin the depth of the accumulation of years, so that his interpretation of When You Are Old reached a near-perfect height, with a charm that no one could imitate. It deeply infected and moved all the audience present. Until Lu Qin finished singing. The applause of the audience was thunderous, pushing the atmosphere to a new climax. Lu Qin stood up with his guitar, and then bowed to express his gratitude to everyone. How lucky he was to have so many lovely fans. In the live broadcast room of Whale TV, more and more fans poured into the platform. Many people came in through QQ groups or Cheba blogs, making the number of online people in the live broadcast room show an explosive growth. And when Lu Qin sang When You Are Old, many fans typed the lyrics in the bullet screen. They also sang along. A song, When You Are Old, completed the adjustment of the mood of the audience, and a possible storm was eliminated without a trace. But Lu Qin did not leave. He sat down again and delivered his second song. He chose to continue singing his folk works. One song after another, the time before the official start of the voice concert became Lu Qin's exclusive performance time. Although it was not a real solo performance, it still gave the audience and fans great satisfaction. Time passed quietly until 7:30, when Lu Qin finished singing his 5th song. He officially said goodbye to the audience and left the stage to the 2 concert hosts. Tonight, Lu Qin was destined to be the protagonist. Chapter 699. Bang, bang, bang. In the clear night sky, a group of gorgeous fireworks exploded, and the sky was filled with a meteor shower, lighting up the sky above Huanglong Stadium and igniting the enthusiasm of the 75,000 spectators in the stadium. Amidst the rising and falling cheers, shouts, and applause, the 2017 Good Voice concert officially began. The 2 large curtains slowly opened, and the logo of the Good Voice appeared on the LED giant screen behind the stage. A man and a woman appeared on the stage under the spotlight. Tonight, the hosts of the Good Voice concert were Kai Jie and Tian Tian. Today's Kai Jie is no longer a small music show anchor at Hangzhou Traffic Radio Station. Relying on the phenomenal variety reality show China's Voice, he has become a well-known host in China, and has now officially joined Zhidong Satellite TV Station. He wore a black suit tonight, and his whole person looked refreshed, and the smile on his face was particularly bright. And his partner, Tian Tian, was even more dazzling. A long red dress set off her almost perfect figure, and every frown and smile was intoxicating. Tian Tian has long since left Zhidong Satellite TV Station, but for tonight's Good Voice concert, the satellite TV station still invited her to come over to co-host with Kai Jie, because no matter her image, temperament, or identity, she was very suitable. Kai Jie said in a clear voice, "Dear leaders, dear guests, Tian Tian, dear audience, everyone, good evening. Today we are gathered here to enjoy the joy that the Good Voice brings us. Open your heart, release your passion, let this place become a sea of joy, let happiness resound through the sky. Let us gather together, let us sing and dance, let the most beautiful and beautiful voice." 7 high-definition digital cameras arranged in the stadium transmitted the live picture to the broadcast vehicle in real time, and then transmitted it to the headquarters building of Zhidong Satellite TV Station, and then presented it to the national TV audience. Although the 2 major online platforms, QQ Video and Whale TV, have taken away a large part of the audience, there are still countless people willing to stay in front of the TV. The real-time ratings fed back to the satellite TV station reached an astonishing 4.89% at 7:30. Although this figure was far from being comparable to Central TV's Spring Festival Gala and was not even a fraction of the latter, it was still enough to make the industry peers' eyes bleed with envy, just how much advertising fees could be earned. In fact, the naming rights of tonight's Good Voice concert have long been taken away by Zhonghua Motors, and the advertising time for the insertion was booked out 2 months ago. The first performance was a grand song and dance program. After the song and dance, the first singer to appear was Liao Jia. He led his Black Memory Band and appeared with a song that countless rock fans were familiar with, Antarctica, which instantly ignited the audience's excitement. This song, Antarctica, could be said to be the masterpiece of Liao Jia and Black Memory. It was regarded as one of the last classics before the country fell. Although it had been 20 years since this song was written, when Liao Jia reinterpreted this classic with his unique voice, many rock fans who came to the scene still couldn't help but cry. Among the 75,000 spectators at the scene, those who came for Liao Jia were definitely a minority. The number of fluorescent signs with his name was far less than that of Lu Qin and Qin Fei. His fans were older and did not like to support their idols in this way. But no one dared to underestimate the power of these rock and roll fans. At the moment when Liao Jia sang to the climax, they all stood up and took off their coats, revealing the black t-shirts with Liao Jia's name on them. They let out almost crazy roars and shouts, which really shocked the other audience. I want to go to the South Pole and take you with me to the South Pole because the true meaning of life is hidden there. These fans were using their own roars to tell everyone that the country would never die, it was just gradually withering. And this scene was faithfully recorded by the live cameras, becoming one of the most classic passages in tonight's Good Voice concert. It made many fans realize that the country was still in people's hearts. If Lu Chen's groundwork set off the prelude to the Good Voice concert, then Liao Jia used this song's South Pole, not only to prove that he was not old, but also to bring a second wave of atmosphere. When he sang to the end, his voice was hoarse, not because he was unable to do what he wanted, but because his mood was surging. Finally, led by Liao Jia's fans, the whole audience stood up together and sent him off the stage with neat applause. Tonight's concert was destined to not be ordinary. Then the top 10 students of the Good Voice came on stage one after another. In the middle, Qin Fei and Shi Fang also came on stage to sing their own classic works, which made the atmosphere of the scene surge like a tide, wave after wave. After the top 10 students of the Good Voice left the stage, Lu Chen came on stage again. This time he was no longer alone. There was also the Nirvana band who had just arrived in Hangzhou in the morning. Today's Nirvana band is no longer the shadow band behind Lu Chen. They have already officially signed with Chen Fei Media and become a real independent band, and will release their first album at the end of the year. Lu Chen's tailor-made For Our Love for the Nirvana band made Nirvana among the first-class bands in China. So when the lead singer Wang Jing led the band members on the stage, many fans shouted the name of Nirvana. Lu Chen and Wang Jing walked to the front of the stage together and stood in front of the microphone. Wang Jing was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. She had short hair and looked very cool holding an electric guitar. When she stood side by side with Lu Chen, the frequency of mobile phone flashes in the audience reached its peak. With a long breath, Lu Chen said to the microphone, "The next song will be sung by me in the Nirvana band. I believe many people should have heard of this song. Its name is 10,000 times sad." As soon as his voice fell, Wang Jing's fingers swept the strings of the guitar and played the prelude of the song. "Oh honey, my mind is full of you. Own irresistible palpitations, it's hard to breathe. Tonight, are you going to miss another night? Are you going to hide your last expectations?" This song, 10,000 times sad, first appeared at the Tianfu Music Festival, and it is also one of Lu Chen's latest pop music works. It is deeply loved by countless fans of Lu Chen with its strong and exciting melody. And this time, Lu Chen and the Nirvana band worked together again to sing this song, 10,000 times sad, which immediately reignited the atmosphere of the scene that had just calmed down. 10,000 times sad. There will still be dreams, I have been waiting for you in the warmest place. The exciting scene of the whole audience singing and singing appeared again. Chapter 700. After 10,000 Times of Sorrow, it was Our Love by Nirvana's lead singer. After a short period of dormancy in the early stage, Chen Fei Media, jointly established by Lu Chen and Qin Fei, has begun to gradually exert its strength and develop in many ways. In addition to setting foot in the film and television industry, it has also pushed its contracted artists to the market. Nirvana and Jejintana appeared at the Voices concert this evening precisely because of this. But anyone with a discerning eye can see that Lu Chen has put a lot of effort into recommending the Nirvana band. There is the Tianfu Music Festival ahead. This time he once again led the Nirvana band on the stage, and also put the latter in the same position as himself. This song, For Our Love, was sung by Wang Jing, and Lu Chen, as an accompaniment guitarist, was willing to play the supporting role. Memories of a vague childhood, clouds floating in the blue sky. At that time, you said that you wanted to hold hands with me. After Our Love was sung by Nirvana at the Tianfu Music Festival, it quickly became popular in the Chinese music world. This song is not only Nirvana's debut work, but also its representative. Of course, fans are very familiar with it. Although this song is not suitable for singing, Wang Jing's passionate interpretation of the work did not dissipate the fanatical atmosphere brought by Lu Chen, but became more intense and hot. When she finished singing, the audience burst into thunderous applause, and many people clapped their hands red. "Thank you." Wang Jing was very excited. The scale of the Tianfu Music Festival that she had participated in was considered very large, but it was nothing compared to the current situation. The Huanglong Stadium could accommodate a total of 75,000 spectators. In the circle, singers of the same level are not as famous as movie stars, but as a singer, the greatest joy is to stand on the brightly lit stage and enjoy the cheers and applause of thousands of audiences. It was as if he had the whole world in his hands, and it was truly intoxicating. It's just that glory is always short-lived. After completing 2 works in a row, Nirvana retired. But Lu Qin stayed. He didn't continue to sing, he had sung enough tonight, but acted as a temporary host. The next song, Lu Qin smiled and said to the microphone, "I think it should be the most special song tonight." Hearing his words, whether it was the live audience or the fans in front of the TV or the computer, all of them had a strong curiosity. What kind of song would it be that would make Lu Qin say it was the most special? Lu Qin continued, "There are a total of 3 singers for this song. First, let's welcome the first singer. He is our instructor Liao Jia." As soon as Lu Qin finished speaking, a spotlight shone on the entrance of the stage, and Liao Jia's figure was immediately revealed. The rock band leader had changed his unruly coat into a set of clothes with strong characteristics of the prairie people. He looked like a straightforward man holding a horsewhip and riding a horse on the prairie. Wasn't the style a little too much? Some of the audience laughed, some exclaimed, some were surprised, and some were applauding. Liao Jia held the microphone in a serious manner, held his head high, and walked to the center of the stage calmly. Lu Qin smiled and said, "The second singer, can you guess who she is?" He turned around and made an inviting gesture, and the second spotlight was fixed on Liao Jia's original position. It was just that it was a different person. The other person's back was facing the live audience, and she was wearing the same style of Mongolian clothes as Liao Jia, but it was a woman's. Many people below the stage were shouting the name loudly. In any case, it was a random guess. Lu Qin didn't leave everyone hanging for too long and immediately revealed the mystery. She is Instructor Shifang. When Lu Qin shouted Shifang's name, Shifang turned around at the same time and smiled at the audience. It turned out to be Shifang. Many of the audience didn't expect it at all. Liao Jia and Shifang sang the same song, which was very exciting to think about. Who was the third singer? It couldn't be Qin Fei, or could it? Qin Fei's fans immediately began to shout her name. The 3 big stars singing together was definitely a classic. Lu Qin smiled and said, "You don't have to guess blindly. The next one isn't Qin Fei, this is also our most special guest tonight. Her name is Zhejian Tana. Welcome Zhejian Tana, our pearl of the grasslands." It turned out to be Zhejian Tana. It was hard to say about other people, but as long as they were fans of Lu Qin and Qin Fei, they would never be unfamiliar with this 14-year-old Mongolian girl. The video shot by Qin Fei at the beginning was a sensation on the internet. The song "Beautiful Grasslands My Home" was also widely circulated. Later, everyone knew that Zhejian Tana had signed with Qin Fei Media, but there was no news recently. Today was her reappearance after a long time. That was very interesting. This song was actually sung by Liao Jia, Shifang, and Zhejian Tana. People couldn't help but look forward to it. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of spectators, the well-dressed Zhejian Tana officially appeared on stage. Although she had just turned 14 this year and had never seen such a big scene before, she did not have the slightest stage fright in front of 75,000 spectators. She gracefully greeted everyone in Mongolian. Liao Jia and Shifang looked at each other and smiled. Lu Qin took the opportunity to say, "The name of this song is called 3 Auspicious Treasures." After he announced the name of the song, he immediately left the stage to Liao Jia, Shifang, and Zhejian Tana. Such a combination was absolutely unique in the Chinese music industry. The prelude of the song sounded. Zhejian Tana tilted her head, raised the microphone and sang to Liao Jia, "Daddy?" Liao Jia, "Huh." Zhejian Tana, "Has the sun come out and the moon gone home?" Liao Jia, "That's right." Zhejian Tana, "Where did the sun go when the stars came out?" Liao Jia, "In the sky." Zhejian Tana, "I can't find it no matter how hard I try." Liao Jia, "He went home." The 3 of them sang, "The sun, moon and stars are an auspicious family." Zhejian Tana looked at Shifang, "Mommy?" Shifang, "Aye." Zhejian Tana, "When will Yeezy's green bloom?" Shifang smiled, "When summer comes." For the audience, the first feeling that this song gave them was that it was fresh. First of all, the melody of the work had a strong characteristic of the steppe people, and the same was true for the accompaniment. Secondly, the 3 of them sang in a duet style, which was even more refreshing. In particular, Zhejian Tana's clear and tender childish voice exuded the smell of fresh milk from the steppe, which made people feel very comfortable listening to it. Liao Jia's singing was deep and affectionate, and Shifang's singing was bright and warm, which formed a sharp contrast with Jejentana's childish voice, but also very harmonious. This was a unique work with its own vitality. Note: 3 Auspicious Treasures lyrics, Burenbayer Wangbao Chinese version, / composer, Burenbayer. Chapter 701. Whether it was the 75,000 spectators in the Huanglong Stadium, or the fans watching the live broadcast in front of their TVs and computers, tonight's concert was definitely one of the most wonderful concerts they had ever seen. Since the beginning of the concert, there have been continuous wonderful climaxes. Lu Qin, Qin Fei, Liao Jia and Shifang led the 9 top 10 students of The Voice and presented a real audition feast for all the audience. And the special guests of the concert did not disappoint. The performance of the Nirvana band was very good, and Liao Jia's friend in the circle, Gao Geng, who was invited to come, also made the whole audience excited with his rock and roll work, bringing wave after wave of climaxes. But whether it was the Nirvana band, Gao Geng, or the famous Taiwanese singer Lu Qingfeng who appeared later, they could not cover the light of a 14-year-old Mongolian girl on the stage. She was Jejentana. A song with strong ethnic characteristics, a moving melody, and a special form of lucky 3 treasures. The foil of the 2 top singers made Jejentana the focus of the audience. So much so that the day after the concert, there were a lot of reports about Jejentana on the entertainment pages and even the main page of the major domestic media. Her sweet and lovely image was circulated in blogs, postbars, and forums. With the help of the concert, Lucky 3 Treasures became famous overnight. A music critic wrote on his blog, "Last night I sat in the Huanglong Stadium and watched the entire performance live. The one that left the deepest impression on me was undoubtedly Jejentana's Lucky 3 Treasures." This is a very situational question-and-answer family song. Listening to this song, it makes people feel as if they are witnessing a family of 3 herding and walking on the grassland. Big eyes of the lovely little daughter are suddenly blinking, enjoying all the novelty presented in front of her, and there are always endless questions. She turns her head to the left to ask her mother, and to the right to ask her father. In the face of the child's childish questions, her parents give her patient and warm answers. And when such a dreamy scene appears in your head, the warm and romantic feeling is like the rising tide of the ocean, beating your heart bit by bit, making you indulge in it and forgetting to leave. Pop Music magazine published a short review on its online edition. The article wrote, "The Auspicious 3 Treasures is undoubtedly the cutest song the author has heard in recent years. It is not a love song about breaking up, it is not a song that is often heard on the charts, and it is not even a regular work. But it is a lively and popular song. It is a song so cute that people will be amazed by it. It has the charm that transcends language, culture, and age. It makes everyone who is eager to be touched feel the joy they have been dreaming of." This song has a life of its own, a life independent of the listener. Other than music critics in the media and magazines, ordinary television viewers, including Lu Chen and Qin Fei fans, were full of praise for The Auspicious 3 Treasures, believing that this song was the most touching work of The Voice's concert. As a result, the number of fans on Jejentana's personal verified blog increased exponentially, from the original hundreds of thousands to millions. Countless invitations were sent to her like snowflakes, and all kinds of performances, endorsements and advertisements were simply too much for one's eyes to take in. But as Jejentana's contracted agency, Qin Fei Media did not take advantage of this surge in popularity to desperately make money. Instead, they picked out a few brands with enough influence to cooperate with, and politely rejected most of the invitations such as program interviews, gala performances and so on. If it were any other media agency, they would definitely want as many invitations as possible. It would be best if Jejentana's schedule was full 24 hours a day. The more her workload, the more benefits the signing agency would get. But whether it was Lu Qin or Qin Fei, they really did not lack this bit of money. The two of them had never thought of using Jejentana as a cash cow. They would rather let her study quietly in school than let her enter the big vat of the entertainment industry too early. It should be said that Jejentana was extremely lucky. She was a pearl buried in the grassland. She met a treasure hunter who really knew how to appreciate and cherish pearls, so that she would not fall into the mud and dust. Of course, this was all in the future. The concert on August 30th officially ended at 11 o'clock in the evening. The next day, August 31st, Zhidong Satellite TV Station and Star Factory Media were the hosts. They invited the 4 mentors of The Voice of China to hold a farewell banquet at the Shangri-La Hotel in Hangzhou. The first season of The Voice of China was completely over. Although the second season of The Voice of China next year had already been put on the production schedule, among the four mentors except for Lu Qin and Qin Feier, Liao Jia and Shi Fang were not sure whether they could continue to participate for the time being. Zhidong Satellite TV Station and Star Factory Media, of course, hoped that the mentor lineup of the first season could be retained, because the current combination of the four could be said to be perfect and had received the greatest recognition from the national television audience. The mentors' remuneration offered by the two companies for the second season of The Voice of China was quadrupled on the basis of the first season. If it were any other celebrity, they would definitely want to sign a contract for 10 years in a row after receiving such a great opportunity to gain fame and fortune. However, Liao Jia and Shi Fang were different. Both of them once had an incomparably glorious era. Although they had not retired from the entertainment industry, they did not value fame and fortune too much. For example, Liao Jia, according to his words, he had earned enough in this life. The rest of his life was to eat, drink and have fun. He did not want his work to become his shackles, and he liked to run around all over the world. Shi Fang's health had never been very good. She chose to make a comeback and made a small contribution. It was entirely because of her love for her personal music career that she continued to sing. She was not short of money at all. Therefore, money could not move the two of them. Of course, because Lu Qin and Qin Feier were there, Zhidong Satellite TV Station and Star Factory Media still had the favor card to play, so they were not particularly anxious. Anyway, both sides still had plenty of time. This farewell dinner was enjoyed by both the guests and the host. All good things must come to an end. After the banquet, Liao Jia and his friend Gao Geng left first, while Lu Qin and Qin Feier sent Shi Fang to Hangzhou International Airport. Shi Fang was on the afternoon flight back to Hong Kong. After seeing off Shi Fang, Lu Qin sent his mother back to Binhai. He also gave Lu Shui a key to his home in Hangzhou. Then he returned to Beijing with Qin Feier to continue the intense filming of You from the Star. Chapter 702. With fresh and unique creativity, wonderful and fascinating story, excellent and attentive production, and the full efforts of the two popular idol stars, Lu Qin and Qin Feier, You from the Star has soared in the ratings since its premiere on August 18 in Beijing and Zhidong Satellite TV Station, sweeping the domestic TV market. By the time Lu Qin and Qin Feier returned to Beijing from Hangzhou, You from the Star had already aired 5 episodes, with an average rating of 5.78%, and the highest rating in South Korea had broken through 35% and rushed straight to the 40% mark. Because You from the Star was a weekly drama that was filmed and broadcast at the same time, and 2 episodes were broadcast consecutively a week, so the shooting work was more demanding. The 2 protagonists were delayed for a few days to participate in the Good Voice concert in Hangzhou, and it was necessary to make up for the progress later. Therefore, as soon as Lu Qin and Qin Feier returned to Beijing, they didn't have time to rest or anything, and immediately threw themselves into the busy shooting, basically treating Huairong Film and Television City as their second home. It wasn't until around August 10 that the two finally made up for the scenes they needed to shoot and could rest for 2 days to catch their breath. Otherwise, even if they were made of iron, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a long period of high-load work. I'm so tired. Back at home in Ziqingyuan, Qin Feier threw herself heavily on the sofa and complained, I won't work so hard in the future. I don't know why I'm working so hard. Qin Feier's complaint was actually very reasonable, because as far as she was concerned, she had really earned enough money. Her annual advertising and endorsement income alone was tens of millions, plus her salary, it was more than 100 million. Moreover, most of the money she earned was invested in real estate and shops. In recent years, domestic housing prices had soared. Even if she didn't sell the real estate in her hands, the rental income alone was enough to maintain a carefree life. Lu Qin smiled and said nothing. He sat on the sofa and held her in his arms, gently kneading her shoulders. Qin Feier narrowed her eyes comfortably and whispered, When I finish this TV series, I'll quit the entertainment industry, okay? I'll cook and mop the floor for you at home and let you support me? Lu Qin said with a smile, Okay. What's so good about it? Qin Feier immediately pouted, I'm an old woman at home so you can hook up with girls outside, right? Don't think I don't know. This was completely unreasonable. Lu Qin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he knew that Qin Feier was just throwing a tantrum occasionally. These unreasonable words were just said casually and shouldn't be taken seriously. Ever since the two of them fell in love with each other, Qin Feier had taken off her heavenly empress appearance in front of him. From time to time, she would reveal her true self as a little woman who needed to be doted on. In fact, this was also the fun between lovers. Lu Chen was already used to dealing with this. He lowered his head and kissed Chen Feier's mouth, pressing her under his body. The atmosphere in the living room suddenly became charming. The blood-boiling sounds rose and fell. After a long time, the sky gradually darkened, and the passion in the bedroom gradually subsided. On the comfortable big bed, Chen Feier had already fallen asleep, and her pretty face still had an intoxicating blush. Lu Chen lowered his head and kissed her cheek. Then he carefully covered her with the air-conditioning quilt and got up to leave the bedroom. Although they had sex for a long time, Lu Chen didn't feel the slightest bit tired at this moment. The strong body that he had built up over a long period of time allowed him to do some things with ease. Therefore he was now full of energy. Lu Chen first went to the bathroom and took a shower. Then he put on a t-shirt and went to the study. After sitting down, he reached out to turn on the computer and quickly found the file he needed from the hard drive. It was a writing document, and the title of the document was The Legend of the Condor Heroes. The editing software showed that the number of words in the document had reached 500,000. This was the second wuxia work that Lu Chen had dug out from the dream world after The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. He had started rewriting it a few months ago and now it was almost half done. Although he had a complete memory of the dream world, it wasn't easy to type out the words that were branded in his head. Especially since Lu Chen was usually very busy with work, he didn't have much time to spend on this work. However, The Legend of the Condor Heroes was very important. If The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was a work to test the waters, then The Legend of the Condor Heroes was the real foundation of his great wuxia IP plan. Therefore it was extremely important. And after being silent for so long, it was time for Memory Now to show up again. After thinking for a while, Lu Chen didn't rush to start writing. Instead he opened the browser and logged into the Waves blog. He clicked on the account switch function and entered an account and password that he rarely used. This ID was Memory Now V, who was currently regarded as an idol by many domestic wuxia novel fans. Although it was a personal verified V account, the registration was done by Chenfei Media. Only Lu Shi and Lu Chen knew the account password. Even the company's internal public relations department didn't keep it. Even within Chenfei Media, only a few people knew that Memory Now was Lu Chen himself. As for the outside world, Memory Now was even more mysterious. He rose to fame in 2016 with a wuxia novel, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and quickly gained a large number of fans. So far, the total sales of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer had exceeded 1 million copies. Although it couldn't be compared with the top physical books, as a niche category of books, its success was undeniable. However, the author Memory Now never showed up. He didn't accept interviews from reporters, nor did he hold book signings, so the fans who liked his works couldn't see him in person. As a result, there were rumors on the internet that Memory Now was too ugly. In order to avoid losing fans due to exposure, he deliberately made himself so mysterious. This completely irresponsible statement was actually quite popular. In addition, some people said that Memory Now was actually a woman. The reason was that her description of the protagonist Ling Huchong was set according to the requirements of a boyfriend. Therefore she didn't dare to show up for fear of being exposed. All these made Lu Chen not know whether to laugh or cry. However, since he chose to keep it a secret, he didn't intend to make it public now. He wanted to keep the mystery. As for what others wanted to say, let them say it. Controversy was not a bad thing. The scariest thing was that no one cared about it. On the other hand, the blog Memories of Present and Ancient was really deserted. The reason was very simple. This blog rarely made any noise. From the time it was registered, it had only posted 5 blog posts. It would be strange if it wasn't deserted. Today, Lu Chen used the 6th blog post to announce the return of Memory Now. It was back. Chapter 703. At night, Jiangqing City's Xiqing district. Bus number 589 steadily stopped next to the platform. Accompanied by the sound of the pneumatic door, several passengers nimbly jumped down from the rear door that had just opened, and more people squeezed into the already crowded carriage from the front door. Similar scenes happened here every day. Wang Pu carried his backpack and passed through the crowd still waiting for the next bus on the platform. Under the guidance of the dim yellow street lights, he quickly walked towards the side street not far away. A busy day of work, coupled with the toss and turn on the subway to the bus route, had already made him very tired, but the joy and relaxation of returning home also made his steps exceptionally light. Walking through the side street and into an alley, Wang Pu returned to his rented apartment. He had just moved here half a month ago. This place used to be completely a suburb, but with the continuous expansion of the urban cluster, the original villages and towns were swallowed up one by one, but some villages should have been temporarily preserved for various reasons, thus forming the so-called urban village. Everyone knew that urban villages would die out sooner or later, whether it was for the needs of the city's appearance or real estate development. They had no reason to continue to exist. The villagers were actually very willing to be demolished, provided that there was enough compensation. Getting rich from demolition was never a fairy tale, and in order to obtain more compensation, they built privately in the village. The additional illegal buildings could not be left empty, so the villagers rented out the houses after simple renovation, using the low rent to accept a large number of people who worked hard in the city. Wang Pu was one of them. The reason why he moved here was because the price of his original rented place had risen. Although this place was a little remote and it would take an extra half an hour on the way back and forth to work, the advantage was that it was cheap enough. Although it was an illegal room, it had water, electricity, broadband, and a separate bathroom. Wang Pu thought about it. Before the urban village was demolished, he would always live here. Taking out the key to open the door, Wang Pu turned on the lights on the wall. The soft and bright light instantly dispelled the darkness, illuminating the messy room. A bed, a wardrobe, a computer desk, and a computer chair. The furniture in the room was very simple, and because Wang Pu was still single, it inevitably looked a little messy. He threw his bag on the bed, took off his clothes, and rushed into the bathroom to wash off the stinky sweat from squeezing in the car. After showering, Wang Pu's stomach was rumbling with hunger. There was no kitchen in this rented house. If he wanted to cook, he had to go to the public kitchen downstairs. Wang Pu was too lazy to go there. He directly took the electric kettle and boiled some water. Then he took out a bucket of instant noodles and 2 sausages from the closet. The dinner of the city ant tribe was just that simple. While waiting for the instant noodles to be ready, Wang Pu sat on the chair and turned on the computer. In the past, when he was living in his old rented apartment, he usually went to the internet cafe to surf the net at night. Now that he had moved to a new house, although there was an internet cafe nearby, it was not as convenient as before. So, he simply asked the landlord to pull an internet cable and directly surf the net at home, which saved a lot of money. Wang Pu skillfully opened a few book websites. First, he browsed through his account bookshelf to see if there were any updates. Different from many of his peers and similar to many of his peers, Wang Pu's biggest hobby is not to play games or chat on QQ, but to read online novels. In Countless Lonely Nights, it was a wonderful online novel that accompanied him, so that he would not lose himself in the confusion of life and the heavy depression of boring and busy work, and so that he could obtain his own happiness. The most important thing is that this kind of happiness does not need to be obtained by paying a high price. Wang Pu has always subscribed to online novels. In addition to directly topping up, he has received free coins through various activities on the website. A month's consumption of reading books is completely affordable. According to his habit, Wang Pu first signed in at several book websites and completed the daily tasks, so that he would have a lot of reading coins, and then he would subscribe to the updates of several books. The money he spent was very limited. It was a pity that the few books that he liked had very few updates today. Wang Pu finished reading the latest chapter in 2 or 3 minutes. He was quite depressed and posted a comment in the comments section of one of the books to urge him to update. Hurry up and update. After clicking OK to publish, Wang Pu angrily closed the current web page. At this time the instant noodles were almost soaked. He tore off the opening paper and wolfed down the ham sausage, but his eyes were still staring at the screen. One hand was still holding the mouse and he randomly clicked on the browser's favorite website link. The page of Wave's blog appeared in front of Wang Pu. Wang Pu had registered his own blog account a long time ago, but he usually did not use it much. He only looked at all kinds of gossip on it, and followed a few famous web authors and popular stars in the entertainment industry. Since he had nothing to do, since he had opened the blog, Wang Pu simply continued to click on the message prompts in his account to see what the people he followed had done. Suddenly his eyes narrowed. What the F***ck? Wang Pu cursed with a mouthful of instant noodles in his mouth, and the chewed noodles sprayed out from his mouth. What the F***ck? He quickly swallowed the noodles and hurriedly pulled out a tissue to wipe the noodles sprayed on the monitor. At this moment on Wang Pu's computer screen, there was a blog post that had just been published, and the blogger was the author of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Ancient Memory. You can't blame Wang Pu for being so shocked. First of all, he was a hardcore fan of Ancient Memory, and one of the earliest readers. Not only did he buy the original physical book of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, but he also read the book at least 3 times. In Wang Pu's hands, there were 5,000 fan and reader groups of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. He usually didn't use QQ much. If he used QQ, he basically ran to the group to talk about the plot of the book with his friends. Of course, there was also the author. It's just that Ancient Memory was too mysterious. So far, he had never appeared in public, and he didn't even know whether he was a man or a woman. There was very little information on the blog. At most, there were 2 or 3 new blog posts a month, and there was not much useful content. But the new blog post that just appeared on the blog of Ancient Memory was different. Ancient Memory was about to release a new book. At this moment, Wang Pu had the urge to burst into tears. He wanted to sing loudly, "I've waited for a long time and finally today. I've dreamed for a long time and finally realized my dream." This song was a new song by the king of Xiangjiang, Lu Gangxing. It was written and composed by Lu Qin, and it was very popular in the mainland recently. Wang Pu felt that these lyrics really matched his mood at the moment. Chapter 704. Although he had read countless online novels, many of which were popular classics, Wang Pu's love for The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer was unmatched by any other book. The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer didn't have any destructive magic, no pretentious and face-slapping routines, and no consequences of having a lot of beautiful women. But it had characters with distinct personalities, a wonderful plot, and words that made him infatuated. The only thing that made Wang Pu feel regretful was that as the author of The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer, Memory of Present and Ancient, only wrote this one martial arts novel. There were no other works, not even short essays. He had read The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer 3 times, but he had to put it aside temporarily. He couldn't read the same book every day. Of course, Wang Pu really hoped that Memory of Present and Ancient could publish a new book. It didn't need to be more wonderful than The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer. As long as it maintained a similar standard, he would be satisfied. But it seemed to be very difficult to realize this wish. Memory of Present and Ancient was too mysterious and low-key. Wang Pu had left many messages in Memory of Present and Ancient's blog to inquire about it, but the message was like a stone sinking into the sea without any response. Usually, when chatting with other like-minded readers in the group, some people said that Memory of Present and Ancient only wrote this book, so he was too embarrassed to come out and meet people. It was enough to make a fortune in silence. For this fallacy, Wang Pu snorted, but there was no way to refute it. Now he finally heard the news of Memory of Present and Ancient's new book. What bullsh*t was that? Wang Pu had always believed that with Memory of Present and Ancient's talent in martial arts novels, his achievements would not be limited to The Smiling, the Proud Wanderer. Without finishing the rest of the instant noodles, Wang Pu quickly forwarded the good news to all his QQ groups, telling everyone that Memory of Present and Ancient was going to publish a new book. The readers were immediately excited. "Are you serious? Big Modern and Ancient has a new book? Great news. This is the best news I've seen today. I wonder what the new book is about. It must be martial arts. If Big Modern and Ancient doesn't write martial arts, then what else is there to read? I'm going to register a blog account right now to follow it. When will it be published?" The Smiling, Proud Wanderer had sold millions of original copies, so it had a huge readership. Therefore, Memories of Present and Past had a lot of fans on the verified V account of Waves. As soon as his blog post came out, it immediately attracted a lot of attention. Fans liked and commented, and like Wang Pu, forwarded the good news to Chieba forums and QQ groups. More people tagged Memories of Present and Ancient on the blog to inquire about the new book, including several internet celebrities. They were also fans of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Tonight was destined to be a lucky moment for the fans of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. Because after the announcement of the new book, the blog of Memory of Present and Past was updated only half an hour later. The content was related to The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, which meant that the movie of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would officially start shooting before the end of the year, and there would probably be auditions for the actors. The 2 major pieces of news shocked the fans again and again. For the readers of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, this was undoubtedly another big news, because they had long been looking forward to the day when The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would appear on the big screen. Now was the era of IP. It was simply inconceivable that a popular novel was not adapted. The key was whether it could be adapted well or not. Many excellent IP had been adapted into bad ones. But fans are positive and affirmative about the film adaptation of The Smiling, Proud and Pugilistic World, because the adaptation copyright of The Smiling, Proud and Pugilistic World is owned by Qinfei Media, which has two big names, Lu Qin and Qinfei. As long as The Smiling, Proud Wanderer could achieve the same effect as a Chinese ghost story, it would be very worth looking forward to. The only thing they prayed for now was that it would not be cancelled. Why are you still playing on the computer? The door of the study was pushed open and Qinfei, who was wearing thin pajamas, rubbed her eyes and walked in. Seeing that Lu Qin was still surfing the internet excitedly, she couldn't help but say, "Do you want to rest?" She walked over and asked, "What are you reading so happily?" Lu Qin held Qinfei in his arms and let her sit on his lap, reading my blog. Qinfei took a closer look and said in surprise, "This isn't your blog." Lu Qin said with a smile, "Why isn't it my own?" Qinfei took a closer look and was speechless. Reminiscence? Why did you use this account? Of course she knew that Reminiscence was an alias that Lu Qin used to write books. His book, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, was very popular, and it was once in the top 3 of the physical book sales chart. And the derivative rights of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer were all with Qinfei Media. In terms of subject matter, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was very suitable to be adapted into movies, TV shows and games. The game aspect would definitely be done by Happy Entertainment, and the movie adaptation was also officially on Qinfei Media's schedule. According to Lu Qin's plan, the adaptation of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer would be the focus of the company next year. But when Qinfei saw the content of Lu Qin's blog, she was still very surprised. "You're going to release a new book?" Lu Qin nodded. "Yes, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer has been out for quite some time. It's about time to release a new book." Lu Qin would create a series of Wuxia IP around the ID memories of present and past. Strictly speaking, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was just a test of the waters. The Legend of the Condor Heroes, which he had completed nearly half of, was the real focus of his work. But The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was selling like hotcakes, and Lu Qin wouldn't waste its value. It had been brewing for a long time and it was time to harvest it. Releasing The Legend of the Condor Heroes would ensure the continuation of his plan. Qinfei knew that Lu Qin had been working on a new book, but she didn't know how many words Lu Qin had written. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. "You finished?" Lu Qin shook his head and replied, "It's less than half, but it's very fast to write." As he spoke, Lu Qin stood up with Qinfei in his arms. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go back to sleep." He wasn't satisfied before and wanted to enjoy it again. Qinfei felt Lu Qin's passion and she giggled, her eyes extremely charming. Tonight was not going to be peaceful. Chapter 705. Time passed quickly and in the blink of an eye, it was already mid-October. Lu Qin spent the whole of September and early October basically busy with the filming of TV series. He spent more time in Huairou Film and Television City than at home. Because he was too busy, he even declined the invitation to perform at Beijing Television's National Day Party. The main reason was that You from the Star was too popular. Since its broadcast, the ratings have been high. It has broken through the category of phenomenal TV series and broken records in China and South Korea. The schedule of 2 episodes a week has put a lot of pressure on the crew. In order to ensure quality, overtime is a common thing. As the male and female protagonists, Lu Qin and Qinfei don't have much free time. However, in mid-October, Lu Qin still managed to squeeze out a few days. He was going to the United States. There are 2 main reasons for Lu Qin to fly to the United States this time. First of all, the listing of online crowdfunding on NASDAQ in the United States has already made progress, and it can even be said that success is imminent, requiring him, the founder and owner of 10% of the shares, to go to the other side of the ocean. Li Mushi, who had been planning the listing of online crowdfunding in the United States earlier, made more than a dozen phone calls to Lu Qin, and finally threatened him that if he didn't come, she would fly back to Beijing in person to teach him a lesson. Not to mention Lu Qin's personal friendship with Li Mushi and Li Mubai, his development since his debut has been smooth and has not experienced too many twists and turns. He is more or less indebted to the shelter of the big tree known as the Li family. Otherwise, it would be strange if no one covets someone like Lu Qin, who has no background and has done so many profitable businesses. Therefore, it is reasonable to say that Lu Qin should also help Li Mushi solve the problem. After all, if online crowdfunding goes public, his 10% shares will be worth at least hundreds of millions and it's US dollars. Secondly, Lu Qin also has plans to visit the United States to find a first-class special effects company that can cooperate with him for a long time to improve the strength of Qinfei Media in this regard. Special effects production was an industry that required long-term investment, and it was also an industry where money flowed like water. It was impossible to rush for quick success. The most important thing was that talents did not fall from the sky. They needed to be carefully cultivated and accumulated. Once they reached an agreement with Marika, Chinfei Media would arrange for batches of personnel to study in Marika and gradually improve the standard of special effects production. At present, the special effects team under Chinfei Media can barely cope with the production of special effects for a TV series like You from the Star, but it is much worse for a big movie. The filming of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer was already on the schedule, so the cooperation training plan couldn't be delayed any longer. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for them to cram at the last minute. Beijing International Airport, Terminal T1. At the security checkpoint, the couple who were about to part were still reluctant to part. Chen Feier adjusted Lu Chen's collar for the last time and said, "Call me first when you arrive in the United States." "Got it?" Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, "I promise that when I arrive there, the first thing I will do after I get off the plane is to call you to tell you that I am safe." Chen Feier had said the same words several times, as if he would go to the United States and never come back. In fact, this time Lu Chen would only stay in the United States for 5 or 6 days at most. Then go through the security checkpoint quickly. Chen Feier was finally satisfied. He stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the lips. He said, "I will wait for you to come back." Lu Chen nodded, picked up his luggage and went to the security checkpoint with his assistant. When passing through the security checkpoint, he turned around and waved at Chen Feier. The latter blew him a kiss. After passing the security checkpoint, Lu Chen and his assistant waited in the VIP lounge for more than half an hour, and successfully boarded the direct flight from Beijing to New York in the United States. He boarded the flight of Jinmei Airlines, the second largest airline in the United States. He boarded the latest Boeing 798, which had just been put into operation. The Boeing 798 was a new generation intercontinental passenger plane launched by the Boeing company. It could carry more than 400 passengers at the same time, and its flight speed was close to the speed of sound. It only took a little more than 10 hours to fly from Beijing to New York. The company booked business class seats for Lu Chen and his assistant because Jinmei Airlines' Boeing 798 flights were very popular. If they were late, the first-class seats would have long been sold out. However, the facilities in the business class of the 798 were no less than the first-class seats of ordinary flights. A person of Lu Chen's height could also sit comfortably. The cabin also provided satellite internet service, so the journey was not lonely. This time, Lu Chen brought an assistant to the United States. Unlike many celebrities who like to be surrounded by people, Lu Chen had always been very low-key when he traveled. He usually only had one assistant, at most 2 or 3. This time he was going to the United States mainly for business matters, so he did not bring Zhang Xiaofeng, who had been following him, but asked the company to arrange another assistant for him. The assistant was named Wang Yan, 32 years old this year. She had studied in the United States for many years and had a double master's degree in finance and law. She had just returned to China the year before last. Wang Yan had nothing to do with the entertainment industry, and she was not an employee of Chinfei Media. She was temporarily hired by Lu Shi through her connections to help Lu Chen deal with business affairs in the United States. She was considered a business assistant. Wang Yan's appearance was very beautiful. Although she was in her 30s, because of good maintenance, she looked 27 or 28 years old. Her figure was also first class. But she was not the kind of pure good-looking vase. She was very smart and powerful. She currently worked in a business agency. Because this company had a business cooperation with Chinfei Media, she had dealings with Lu Shi. Lu Shi had a deep impression of Wang Yan, so she specifically asked her for help this time. After all, this time Lu Chen was going abroad to negotiate. Lu Shi had no experience in this area and was powerless. She was afraid that Lu Chen would be cheated and could not guarantee her own interests, so she looked for Wang Yan. Therefore, in terms of treatment, Wang Yan was different from ordinary assistants. She sat in business class with Lu Chen. Most of the people in business class were foreigners with blonde hair and blue eyes. Wang Yan first met Lu Chen 2 days ago. She had no interest in pop music, movies, and TV. Although she knew what kind of person Lu Chen was, she did not have any thoughts about Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen was a big star. Out of curiosity and the needs of work, after sitting down, Wang Yan tried to find some topics to talk to him. After all, the two would be in the United States for a few days. They could establish a good relationship and get along well. After chatting, Lu Yan found that Lu Chen did not have the slightest air of a big star. He was almost like an ordinary boy next door, so the two sides quickly became familiar. Chapter 706. Wang Yan is very eloquent and likes to travel. She is very knowledgeable. She talked to Lu Chen about the interesting things and food she encountered on her journey, which made Lu Chen listen with relish. Of course, Lu Chen doesn't have any thoughts about Wang Yan. Although the latter is mature and beautiful, there is no shortage of beautiful women in the entertainment circle. Naturally, he can look at her indifferently, but chatting with her is also a very pleasant thing. After the plane took off, the two chatted for an hour and called each other sister and brother. Wang Yan talked to Lu Chen about interesting travel stories, and Lu Chen told her some anecdotes in the circle. The two sides interact. Then Wang Yan asked curiously, "Lu Chen, how much money can a star like you make in a year?" She added, "It doesn't matter if you don't say, I just want to know a little bit." In fact, domestic and international stars have income rankings, but this kind of list is usually nonsense because there are many hidden rich people, and the income of stars is very complicated. In addition to performance pay, there are advertising endorsements, program production, publicity activities, and so on. Some stars even have to eat with others to earn money. Lu Chen thought about it and replied, 1 or 200 million. In fact, his income from all aspects last year and this year added up to at least 7 or 800 million, not including the shares of several companies, but there is no need to shake it all out. 1 or 200 million, Wang Yan couldn't help but say, "If I make that much money, I will retire directly and travel around the world." Lu Chen smiled and said, "If you really make that much money, maybe you won't think that way." Wang Yan shook her head, "I am different from you stars. I don't have high requirements for life. In fact, I have already thought about it. No matter how much money I make, I will retire at the age of 40. Lu Chen's heart moved and said, "Sister Yan, come to our company, maybe you can retire a few years earlier." Lu Shi told him that Wang Yan is a very good financial and business talent. Although Qinfei Media is a company in the entertainment industry, Lu Chen's industry is not limited to the entertainment industry. So if possible, let him rope in more people in the United States and see if he can poach Wang Yan. Wang Yan pursed her lips and smiled, "I'll think about it." She was really a little tempted. Lu Chen himself could earn 1 or 200 million yuan. How bad could the company he owned be? Qinfei Media was very famous in the industry. Lu Chen didn't force it. It was enough for him to make it clear. He changed the topic and talked about something else. After a long flight, the Boeing 798 finally entered the United States. The flight took off from Beijing, passed through Russian territory, entered Canada, and finally went to New York in the United States. It arrived at 8:35 p.m. on time. They would arrive at their destination in 2 to 3 hours. It was dinner time, and the air stewardess had delivered a sumptuous dinner. Lu Chen had just slept for 2 hours. After waking up, he finished his dinner in high spirits. Then he asked the flight attendant for 2 cups of black tea and continued to chat with Wang Yan. But this time they talked about business, mainly involving Lu Chen's 10% shares in the crowdfunding website. 90% of the shares of the crowdfunding website were originally in the hands of Li Mushi, or more accurately, the Li family. As the founder, Lu Chen only retained 10% of the non-dilutable founder's shares. Later, Li Mushi sold a small part of the shares to deal with the financial problems encountered in the process of website expansion. Because Lu Chen has long been involved in the company's operation, he has always maintained a detached attitude. However, if the crowdfunding website wants to be listed on Nasdaq in the United States, it is impossible for Li Mushi to retain more than 50% of the high proportion of shares. It is necessary to sell more shares and introduce investments from various parties. And these investments, of course, are dominated by U.S. capital, which is part of the rules of the game. To seek a successful listing, Li Mushi's shares need to be reduced by a large part, and Lu Chen's 10% of the founder's shares can't all be held in his hands, so he needs to go to the United States. Li Mushi will certainly not deliberately pit Lu Chen, but if Lu Chen wants to ensure that his own interests are not damaged, then in this equity negotiation he needs a professional like Wang Yan to come forward. Wang Yan admires Lu Chen very much. She thinks that the crowdfunding website is a very genius business model. So many business elites didn't expect it, but it was created by him, a musician. It's really a bit incredible. She also feels sorry for Lu Chen. If he hadn't given up so many shares, once the crowdfunding website was successfully listed on Nasdaq in the United States, Lu Chen would immediately join the ranks of the domestic rich list. In this regard, Lu Chen just smiled. He has the memory wealth of a world and countless business ideas. It is really not difficult to make money, but that is not the career he wants to pursue. He likes singing, music, making TV and movies, and likes the love and support of his fans. Bang. While chatting with Wang Yan, Lu Chen suddenly heard a sound similar to the sound of a champagne bottle cork being opened. Then, from the economy class in the back, came one after another screams. Something happened. An ominous feeling suddenly welled up in Lu Chen's heart, and he suddenly stood up. Not only Lu Chen, but Wang Yan sitting next to him and other passengers in business class also realized that the situation was not right. Some stood up like Lu Chen, and some sat in their seats and turned their heads to look around in horror. Gunshots. I heard gunshots. Someone said in a trembling voice in English, "Oh my God. There are more than 400 passengers on this flight, and the plane is flying at an altitude of 30,000 feet. Once an accident occurs, it is likely to result in the destruction of the plane and the death of the passengers." His words made the passengers in business class despair. It's not a hijacking, is it? A Junmei stewardess who was in business class looked pale and said calmly, "Please sit down and fasten your seat belts, our crew." Bang. Another gunshot rang out. And this time the gunshot was much clearer than before. This time there were screams of horror in business class. Lu Chen quickly leaned down and said to Wang Yan, "Sister Yan, you protect yourself here, I will go and have a look." Wang Yan suddenly turned pale with fright. Lu Chen? Without waiting for her to dissuade him, Lu Chen had already turned around and rushed toward the economy class. He needs to know what happened over there. He doesn't want to passively sit and wait, his fate must be in his own hands. Almost in a breath, Lu Chen rushed through the door between the two cabins and rushed into the economy class. He saw at a glance that in the middle of the economy class, a burly man holding a pistol was shouting at the passengers on the right seat. There was also a man in a suit lying on the aisle, and the other passengers were all holding their heads, shrinking in their seats, shivering like frightened quails. Chapter 707. The scene he saw when he rushed into the economy class made Lu Chen realize that something big had happened. The burly foreign man was holding a real gun. The two gunshots he heard just now were also real and they had caused casualties. Lu Chen's first feeling was that it was incredible, because domestic airport security was notoriously strict around the world. International flights needed to undergo double security checks, and Beijing International Airport's facilities were even more top-notch. So how could a real gun be brought onto the plane? Secondly, the state of the man with the gun was not right. He was waving the gun to threaten the passengers. He actually wanted the other party to open the innermost safety door. Lu Chen's English was still very good, so he was sure that he didn't hear wrong. If this was a hijacking, then there was a problem with the common sense of the hijacker. When the plane was flying in the air, the safety door couldn't be opened. In addition to being locked, there was also the problem of the difference in air pressure between the inside and outside. Even if it was really open, did he want to jump out from the inside? Or did he want to take all the passengers on the plane down with him? The man with the gun was extremely manic. His face was ferocious and his eyes were red. Under the threat of his gun, the passenger was scared out of his wits. He cried subconsciously, Don't kill me." Seeing such a situation, Lu Chen's mind turned. He didn't have time to think about the strangeness of it, so he sped up and rushed to the man with the gun. Lu Chen's move was undoubtedly very dangerous. He was unarmed and the other party was holding a gun. No matter how good his skills were, he couldn't stop a bullet. But Lu Chen had no other choice. He was saving himself by saving people. Once the plane had an accident, no one would survive. The huge sense of crisis made Lu Chen's body secrete a lot of adrenaline. He became extremely calm, and his speed completely exceeded his usual limit. In the blink of an eye, he rushed a distance of more than 10 meters and approached the man with the gun. However, although the man with the gun had lost control of his emotions, he had an instinctive vigilance. He was almost aware of the approaching danger in an instant. Without thinking, he turned around and pulled the trigger at Lu Chen. Bang! The third shot. The shot was so sudden, and the man with the gun did not hesitate at all. However, Lu Chen was already prepared. The moment he saw the opponent turn around and raise his arm, he abruptly dove forward, narrowly avoiding the incoming bullet. At this moment, Lu Chen had never felt so close to death. In the next moment, he landed on the ground and rolled half a circle forward. Immediately after, he pushed himself off the ground with his hands and leaped up. Both of his legs flew out at the same time, kicking fiercely towards the spear-wielding man from below. This movement was incredible. Lu Chen's left hand was on the floor of the cabin, and his body was already in the air. His right leg was extended straight up for a high kick, and his left leg was half bent. It was a little like a rabbit kicking an eagle, but the difficulty was much higher. The spear-wielding man's first shot at Lu Chen missed. He was obviously stunned. Just as he was about to aim again, Lu Chen's right foot had already heavily kicked his wrist. The power of this kick was so fierce that only a "kacha" sound was heard. The spear-wielding man's wrist was abruptly broken. The pistol that was originally tightly held flew out of his hand and fell on the shoulder of a passenger a few meters away. At this moment, the economy class was once again filled with screams and cries. "I'm going to kill you." The spear-wielding man had lost his weapon and his right hand, but he was still very fierce. The intense pain made him fall into complete madness. He opened his arms and fiercely pounced towards Lu Chen, who was still on the ground. However, without a lethal weapon, why would Lu Chen give the opponent a chance to counterattack? Seeing the man's burly body pounce on him, he, who was half lying on the floor, immediately raised his leg and gave another heavy kick. This was a rabbit kicking an eagle. Bang! His legs heavily kicked the burly man's lower abdomen and suddenly kicked him out. Lu Chen took the opportunity to jump up and his heart was calm. The burly man was also amazing. His physical fitness was excellent. After being kicked in the abdomen by Lu Chen, he was still able to struggle to get up. Like a wounded beast, he let out a low growl and persevered and pounced at Lu Chen again. He waved his intact left hand and punched at Lu Chen. This punch was undoubtedly a great threat to ordinary people, but it was far from enough to deal with Lu Chen. Lu Chen nimbly dodged sideways and a beautiful right hook fiercely hit the opponent's jaw. Then he raised his right leg like lightning and kicked the burly man's abdomen again. Under the heavy blows, the burly man finally couldn't hold on and his head fell to the ground. This time he completely lost the ability to resist and fainted on the spot. "It's over." Lu Chen couldn't help but take a long breath, but he didn't relax. He immediately rushed over and pulled out the burly man's belt, then turned him over and tied his hands with the belt. After confirming that the murderer had been subdued, Lu Chen stood up again and said loudly, "Everyone is safe." Because most of the passengers on this flight were foreigners, he shouted in English. The fight between Lu Chen and the burly man ended so quickly that many of the frightened passengers didn't immediately react. After a while they confirmed that they were really safe. Then the whole cabin exploded. Some people cried loudly, some thanked God for their blessings, some applauded Lu Chen for subduing the murderer, and some took out their mobile phones to film. It was chaos inside. Several frightened flight attendants ran over. They maintained order while treating the people who fell to the ground. A total of 2 people were injured and fell to the ground. One of them was just knocked out by the burly man, but the other person was shot in the abdomen and was bleeding. The situation was quite critical. Lu Chen didn't stay idle. He borrowed ropes from other passengers and tied the burly man firmly. The process of the fight just now told Lu Chen that the man was definitely not an ordinary person. He was able to defeat the man completely because of a surprise attack. There was a lot of luck involved. So even if the man was unconscious, he didn't dare to be careless. Several passengers volunteered to help Lu Chen tie up the man and also kicked the man a few times to vent their anger. Almost all the people on the plane were buried with him. After solving the culprit, Lu Chen helped the flight attendants treat the wounded who were shot. Through a conversation with the flight attendants, he learned that the wounded person was a plainclothes air police officer on the flight. He was attacked in the process of stopping the burly man's murder. The pistol was the air police's gun. One of Lu Chen's big questions was solved. The air police's gun and bullets were specially made. The power was much weaker than ordinary pistols. It couldn't penetrate the cabin wall of the plane, but the lethality to people at close range was not low. The air police officer was seriously injured. Whether he could survive in the end, it really depended on their God's blessing. But more than 400 other passengers and crew members, including Lu Chen, could continue to live well. This was more important than anything. Chapter 708. Flight UD-725 failed to reach New York and landed at the nearest Air Force base. When a dangerous situation occurred in the economy class, the captain immediately activated the anti-hijacking plan, alerted the air traffic control, and switched the plane from autopilot mode to manual control, preparing for a forced landing. For the sake of safety, an intercontinental aircraft like the Boeing 798 has high-definition cameras inside and outside the cabin. The captain can observe the situation inside the cabin at any time. Although the murderer was subdued by Lu Chen, the alarm has already been issued, so it must be dealt with in accordance with the prescribed procedures. Therefore, the plane made an emergency landing at a military airport owned by the U.S. Air Force. When the plane landed, Lu Chen returned to his seat. He received extraordinary treatment. Zhen Mei's flight attendants took turns to give him free tea and snacks. When the other passengers in the business class understood what happened, They shook hands with Lu Qin and expressed their gratitude and admiration to Lu Qin. Among them, 3 beautiful flight attendants secretly gave Lu Qin a note with a phone number on it. Wang Yan couldn't help but exclaim, "You are now a hero." She was still a bit shaken. When the shooting happened, Wang Yan was really scared. She had seen the news of hijacking and air crashes on TV before, but she never thought that the same thing would happen on her own flight. Things that seemed so far away before, only when she experienced it personally did she know how terrifying it was. What made her feel even more incredible was that in such a dangerous situation, Lu Qin actually rushed over. This simply subverted Wang Yan's worldview. Lu Qin was very young, very handsome, and a well-known idol in the country. He also had a heavenly queen-level girlfriend. He could earn 1 or 200 million a year, which could be described as having a bright future. The richer one is, the more afraid they are of death. However, in a critical moment, Lu Qin disregarded his own safety and went to deal with an armed murderer with his bare hands. What kind of courage does this require? Wang Yan didn't think that Lu Qin was a brainless and reckless person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have his current identity and status. What drove him to do this? Was it passion or was it courage? Wang Yan couldn't guess Lu Qin's thoughts at that time. She could only sigh in admiration. Lu Qin smiled and said, "I'm not a hero. If something happens on the plane, I won't be able to escape." Wang Yan shook her head. How could it be so simple? During the conversation, the Boeing 798 landed steadily on the airport and entered the ground taxiing stage. The sky was already bright. There was a difference of more than 10 hours between the United States and China, so the morning flight from Beijing International Airport would still arrive in the morning. A faint morning mist shrouded the land. Through the porthole, he could see vehicles with flashing lights parked beside the runway outside. There were police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, anti-riot vehicles, and so on. It was exactly a scene from an American blockbuster. Some of the more reckless Americans took pictures with their phones. Now that they were safe, everything that had happened before was undoubtedly a very exciting experience for them. After taking a photo, he could go back and brag about it. When the plane stopped, the hatch opened, and immediately a team of heavily armed SWAT officers rushed in and quickly took control of the entire plane along with more than 400 passengers on board. This was the basic procedure for anti-hijacking and terrorist attacks. The seriously injured air marshal was sent to first aid. The pistol, as the most important evidence, was taken away by the SWAT officers. Then the passengers were arranged to get off the plane in an orderly manner. Moreover, under their strict control, carry-on luggage couldn't be taken away for search, and all the passengers' mobile phones were confiscated. Although the passengers were treated rather rudely, no one complained. They were already extremely lucky to have survived such a terrible disaster. Lu Qin and Wang Yan also got off the plane, but Lu Qin received different treatment from ordinary passengers. He was politely invited to an office in the airport by a policeman wearing a black bulletproof vest. In this office, Lu Qin was questioned by a middle-aged man who claimed to be an FBA officer, mainly to understand what happened at the time. Because he stopped the murderer in time, the FBA man was very polite, but the content of his inquiry was extremely detailed, including Lu Qin's identity, family, purpose of going to the United States, and so on. Lu Qin sipped the hot coffee and answered all the questions very cooperatively. The questioning lasted for more than an hour before the FBA man was finally satisfied. "Mr. Lu Qin," he got up and extended his hand to Lu Qin and said, "On behalf of the United States of America, I sincerely thank you for your heroic behavior, and thank you for your cooperation." Lu Qin shook hands with him and said, "Thank you." The FBA man continued, "In addition, please keep in touch with us at all times. Without our permission, please do not leave the United States for the time being." This was a little helpless, but opposition was certainly invalid. Lu Qin didn't want to make trouble for himself. "Okay, I understand." A smile appeared on the FBA man's stiff and serious face. "Welcome to the United States." This welcome ceremony was a bit too big. Lu Qin didn't have the strength to complain, so he could only nod and smile. He suddenly thought of something and asked, "Can I call my family?" His phone was also taken away. The FBA man hesitated for a moment, but he still made an exception and allowed Lu Qin to use the phone in the office. Lu Qin first called Qin Fei. Of course, Qin Fei didn't know what had happened on the UD 725 flight. She thought that Lu Qin had already arrived in New York, and wondered why Lu Qin didn't use his own phone to make the call. Considering that Qin Fei would know the truth sooner or later, Lu Qin didn't hide it and told her everything. After listening to it, Qin Fei was stunned for a long time, then she sobbed and said that she wanted to fly over immediately to accompany him. She almost lost Lu Qin. Lu Qin could only comfort her, saying that he was fine. After a long time he finally calmed his girlfriend down. Then Lu Qin told Lu Shi that he was safe and told his sister to tell his mother that before the news came out, the company should keep quiet for the time being. As a result, Lu Shi also said that she wanted to fly to the United States. Lu Qin could only comfort her again. His international long-distance call lasted for nearly an hour. After that, Lu Qin and Wang Yan were able to meet again and get their luggage. But their phones could only be returned in New York. Jinmei Airlines sent 2 new planes to transport the stranded passengers to New York. The original Boeing 798 had to go through a strict safety inspection before it could fly again. After such a torment, when Lu Qin arrived in New York, it was already noon in the United States. The news of the UD-725 flight accident had already exploded in the media. Chapter 709. The United States was undoubtedly the most powerful country in the world. Its economic and military strength was the best in the world. However, since the end of World War II, Uncle Sam, whose national power had been expanding, had become more and more fond of playing the role of the world's policeman, which had attracted too much hatred for them. Since the beginning of the 21st century, with the increasing complexity of the international situation, the domestic security situation of the United States had been severely challenged. Several sensational terrorist attacks made the American people feel pain in their bones. On July 15, 2012, a flight from San Francisco to New York was hijacked and crashed in Missouri. All 257 passengers and 12 crew members on board were killed, shocking the entire world. On December 24, 2014, on Christmas Eve, a Boeing 737 from Houston to Los Angeles exploded and made an emergency landing. 105 passengers were killed and 27 passengers were seriously injured. This once again stung the hearts of the Americans. After an investigation, it was found that someone had planted a timed plastic bomb on the plane. The bloody lessons made the Americans extremely sensitive to aviation safety. The United States had the largest number of civil aircraft in the world, carrying more than 1 billion air passengers every year. On average, every American took 3 flights a year. Because of this, the news of the suspected hijacking of Flight UD-725 could not be hidden for long. The resourceful American media quickly received a tip-off from an informant, which was then immediately broadcasted by the largest television station in the United States, CNK. Due to the sensitive nature of aviation safety, coupled with the fact that the hijacked Flight UD-725 was an international flight, and the model was Boeing's latest 798 Dreamliner, with more than 400 passengers on board, it was truly a major incident. It could be imagined that if the plane had an accident, it was likely to be the worst aviation accident in the history of the United States. The news that was not completely confirmed spread on the internet like a plague. The unscrupulous media swarmed like flies smelling blood. The phone of the Federal Aviation Administration was inundated, and the website of Jinmei Airlines was directly paralyzed. Then all kinds of rumors appeared in the media. Some said that the plane might have crashed and the government blocked the news. Some said that there was no crash, but it had been hijacked and was in negotiations. In short, there were all kinds of rumors. Under such circumstances, in order to avoid causing panic among the public, the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) held a press conference and revealed some accurate information. Flight UD-725 encountered an accident on the way to New York, but the situation was quickly and effectively controlled. 1 crew member was injured and the plane had safely landed at an Air Force base. All the passengers were safe and sound. The FAA officials further revealed that 439 passengers and 17 crew members would take 2 planes provided by Jinmei Airlines and were expected to return to New York at noon. The FAA's response was undoubtedly very fast, and it promptly calmed the public's panic and dispelled many irresponsible rumors. However, the media was not willing to give up. They could not dig out more information from the FAA, so they immediately turned their attention to the passengers returning to New York. New York's media outlets, television stations, newspapers, magazines, and news websites swarmed to New York International Airport in an attempt to dig up first-hand information from the passengers of Flight UD-725. It was under such circumstances that Lu Qin took a transfer flight from Jinmei Airlines to New York. Lu Qin was treated like a hero on the plane. He was first recognized by several passengers, and then all the passengers applauded and cheered for him, and the stewardesses were even more enthusiastic. During the ensuing flight of more than an hour, Lu Qin had no time to rest. When he was about to arrive in New York, all the temporarily detained communication tools of all the passengers, including him, were returned. As soon as the plane landed, Lu Chen called Li Mushi. "Thank God. You're fine." Li Mushi was relieved when she received the call. "You have no idea how worried I was for the past few hours." She only found out that Lu Chen's flight had an accident when she saw the news on CNK. She was really worried at the time. Fortunately, she called in time to inform Lu Chen that he was safe and sound. Now that she heard Lu Chen's voice, Li Mushi's heart was finally at ease. If Lu Chen had really met with an accident, she would definitely feel guilty for the rest of her life. She was the one who called Lu Chen more than a dozen times, forcing Lu Chen to fly to the United States at this time. No one could have predicted that a flight accident would happen, but if it was not for her, there would not have been a problem. Thank God Lu Chen was fine. Lu Chen said with a smile, "It's just a little accident." "Where are you?" Li Mushi said, "I'm at the New York International Airport. There are a lot of people here now. I guess all the reporters in New York have come. I can only wait for you outside the exit of the flight." The voice on her phone was very noisy. The airport was really chaotic. In fact, it was obvious that, except for the media reporters who wanted to see the world in chaos, the relatives and friends of the passengers who could come must have come. Only when they encountered such a big event did they know the value of life. After chatting with Li Mushi for a while, the plane had stopped and the captain reminded the passengers to get off the plane through the radio. He finally said, "I believe that God is with us. He has sent us a real hero. Thank you, Mr. Lu Chen. Good luck to everyone." There was a sudden warm applause and whistles in the plane. All of them were for Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled to express his gratitude. He turned his head and saw that Wang Yan, who was sitting next to him, had just put away her mobile phone. The latter's face was full of tears. Noticing Lu Chen's concerned gaze, she was very embarrassed and wiped her tears. She said, "I just called my mother. She was crying very hard and asked me to go back immediately. There is also news in China." With such a big event, as soon as the news came out in the United States, it would definitely be known in China. One could imagine how anxious the family members of the passengers who took the UD 725 flight were. Most of the passengers on the UD 725 flight were foreigners, mainly Americans returning to China, but there were also Chinese and Chinese. Lu Chen nodded in understanding. "If you want to go back, I will ask someone to book you the next flight." Under such circumstances, he couldn't force Wang Yan to continue working for him. "No need," but Wang Yan shook her head and said firmly, "I'm fine. I will persuade my family. You don't have to worry. Everything will go according to the original plan." Lu Chen smiled bitterly. Now he couldn't follow the planned itinerary. He originally planned to stay in the United States for 4 or 5 days, but now he estimated that 10 days might not even be enough. To leave the country and return to China, he first needed the consent of the FBI. But since he was already here, he had to adapt to the situation. Let's go. Chapter 710. Outside the exit of the B3 passenger passage at New York International Airport, there was already a sea of people. Many reporters carrying long and short cameras were mixed in the crowd, and there were also TV reporters broadcasting live, making the entire hall seem chaotic. Most of them were people who were anxiously waiting for the safe return of their relatives and friends. They included the elderly, children, and pregnant women with big bellies. Some were holding signs with their names written on them and some were holding flowers. A large number of security personnel were arranged at the airport to maintain order, and there were also heavily armed police officers at the scene. When the first batch of passengers of flight UD 725 walked out of the passage, the crowd outside suddenly burst into loud cheers and shouts. The reporters desperately squeezed through the crowd, and the clicking sound of camera shutters accompanied by the flashes of lights could be heard one after another. Family reunion and friends and relatives seeing each other was undoubtedly the most touching moment. Many people shed tears. After experiencing the thrilling moment on the flight, they understood the value of life. This was also the moment for reporters to show their skills. Lu Chen and Wang Yan were also stopped by a reporter, but Lu Chen pretended not to understand English and waved his hand to refuse the other party's interview. He quickly squeezed through the crowd with Wang Yan and went outside. The reporter holding the microphone shrugged and didn't care too much. He turned to look for a new target. He certainly didn't know what he had missed. Lu Chen. A shout full of surprise let Lu Chen smoothly find Li Mushi, who came to greet him. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Sister Mushi." After not seeing each other for a while, Li Mushi's figure was a little slimmer. Her skin was tanned a lot in the United States, but it looked healthier. She was wearing a white and green floral dress, which was very feminine. Li Mushi quickly stepped forward, opened her arms and gave him a big hug. This hug was quite erotic, which made Lu Qin a little embarrassed. Li Mushi let go of her hand, clenched her fist and hit him on the chest. "You really scared me?" Lu Qin said with a smile. "Aren't I fine now?" Li Mushi shook her head and said, "Let's go. I'll take you to the hotel first." Li Mushi drove over in person. A white four-door Maserati coupe, carrying Lu Qin and Wang Yan to Manhattan, New York. Manhattan was the most densely populated of the 5 boroughs of New York City, about the size of New York County. It was surrounded by the East River, the Hudson River, and the Harlem River. It also included some small islands and an enclave on the mainland. This area, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, was described as the economic and cultural center of the entire United States. It was also the location of the headquarters of the United Nations. Wall Street in Lower Manhattan had the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq. In addition, its real estate market is also the most expensive in the world, and many multinational companies have set up their headquarters here. Li Mushi booked a Hilton hotel in the center of Manhattan for Lu Qin. She booked a long-term business suite in this hotel and sat in command of the battle of the online crowdfunding listing on Nasdaq. For a young China internet company like the online crowdfunding, although it has shown good development prospects and profitability, if it wants to be listed on Nasdaq, it has to go through many games and give up part of the benefits to get what it wants. The elites of Wall Street are absolutely the kind of people who eat people without spitting out the bones. Li Mushi has been in New York for some time, and now she has made a breakthrough. Otherwise, she would not have brought Lu Qin to the United States. "Are you satisfied with this room?" After entering the door, Li Mushi said, "If you are not satisfied, we can change it." Lu Qin said with a smile, "What's not satisfied? It's already very good here. Sorry to trouble you, Sister Mushi." Lu Qin used to live in a 10-square-meter basement for a year or two. Now he lives in a 5-star hotel in Manhattan. What can he be dissatisfied with? He doesn't have that kind of celebrity disease. "What trouble?" Li Mushi waved her hand and said, "You rest first and get rid of the jet lag. I'll invite you to dinner in the evening." Lu Qin didn't treat her as an outsider. "Okay." Li Mushi nodded. She suddenly hugged Lu Qin and kissed Lu Qin on the face. Lu Qin was stunned. Li Mushi giggled and said, "Don't think too much. I just want to kiss you. I find you very cute." After that, she turned and left, closing the door. Lu Qin touched his face, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He took out his cell phone and called Qin Fei first. After telling his lover and family that he was safe again, he went to the bathroom to take a good bath, then lay down on the bed in the bedroom and soon fell asleep. At the same time that Lu Qin fell asleep, the news and online media circles in the United States could be described as turbulent. After the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) held a press conference on Flight UD 725, the sensitivity of related news had dropped to a lower level. After all, there was no terrorist attack or plane crash. Only one crew member was injured and all the passengers returned safely. No matter how big the incident was, it was very limited. However, the media reporters, through on-site interviews at the airport, learned that there was a shooting incident on the flight. The real situation was not as simple as it seemed. What interested the reporters the most was the hero that every passenger was talking about. The hero who stood up and stopped the murderer at the critical moment, and it was a Chinese man. Many details of the incident were exposed, and the public finally knew how dangerous the situation was. An irrational madman robbed the air marshal's pistol, injured the air marshal, and threatened the passengers to open the safety door. If it weren't for this hero who acted in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Unfortunately, all the passengers could not provide photos or video information. Their mobile phones and cameras were confiscated by the FBI. Even if they were bold enough to take some photos at the time, they were all cleaned up. Everyone was in a different position, so the details were different and some were even contradictory. For the media, only the narratives of the people involved were obviously lacking enough authenticity and intuition. Who was this hero? What did he look like? How did he stop the murderer at the time? It was difficult to clearly describe. There was also the murderer. Of course, the FAA and the FBI definitely had the most detailed information, but it was basically impossible to get photos and videos from these two. Just as the media reporters were at their wits' end hoping to dig out more truth, the largest social media network in the United States, Spook, actually posted a secretly recorded video of the incident of Flight UD 725. This 3-minute video instantly shocked the entire internet, and at the same time, it was like a treasure to the media. Chapter 711. Adams was a freelance geek. Like most other geeks, he regarded innovation, technology, and fashion as the meaning of his life. He was willing to make his own contribution to the modern electronic society and culture. In early October, he was invited by a Fortune 500 internet company to participate in a geek convention held in the capital of China. Then he spent several days in Beijing, visiting famous tourist attractions such as the Forbidden City and the Great Wall. After he was done, Adams booked a ticket to return to the United States on Jinmei Airlines. He still had a geek party to attend in New York, so he took flight UD 725. At the time of the accident, Adams was sitting in the 7th row of the economy class, near the aisle seat. When he realized that something was wrong, he immediately took out the Selfie Go sports camera that he carried with him, crouched in his seat and secretly took photos. In fact, Adams was not the only one who secretly took photos in the economy class. Many passengers also turned on the camera on their mobile phones, but they were not as lucky as Adams. First of all, the Go sports camera that Adams used was a high-end product. Not only did it have high pixels, but it also came with optical zoom and triple optical anti-shake function. Therefore, the quality of the video he secretly took was far superior to that of a mobile phone. He was also very courageous. When the burly man fired, he still risked his life to continue filming, so he captured the most complete process of the entire incident. After the secretly filming was completed, Adams quietly copied the video stored in the camera to the USB drive, and then he stuffed the USB drive into his sneakers. The facts proved Adams's cleverness. After the plane made an emergency landing, all the electronic devices of the passengers were confiscated by the FBI, including Adams' Go sports camera. When he got back his camera, the memory card in it was actually replaced with a new one, and the capacity was doubled. The reason was very simple. Adams recorded the scene, and it was not safe to just delete the video. There was a possibility that the technology could recover it, so the FBI simply replaced the original. On the surface, of course, Adams scolded the FBI, but after getting off the plane he immediately returned to his residence in New York, simply edited the video stored in the USB drive, and uploaded it to his Tbook account. The video was labeled, UD 725, Jinmei Airlines, Hero, Truth, etc. Tbook was the largest social network in the United States and the world, with more than 1.5 billion registered users. It was also the world's largest photo and video sharing website, with more than 500 million photos uploaded by users every day. At the moment, the biggest hot topic on Tbook was undoubtedly the UD 725 incident. This was also the place where all kinds of rumors took place. Before the FAA's official statement was announced, countless news and rumors had already spread on Tbook, causing people to panic. After the FAA held a press conference, the heat of the incident dropped significantly. After all, there was no hijacking or terrorist attack, so everyone paid less attention to it. But UD 725 was undoubtedly the most popular search term on Tbook today. Therefore, when Adams' high-definition video of the scene was uploaded for only half a minute, someone immediately noticed it and forwarded it. Then, like a plague, it spread on Tbook. The number of clicks and reposts reached a terrifying level. It only took 10 minutes for it to reach the trending list on the homepage of Tbook. This video caused a great sensation in the Tbook circle. Countless media reporters heard the news and rushed to download it. At the same time, they desperately tried to contact Adams. When many Tbook users saw this video for the first time, they first doubted its authenticity. Because as a candid video, Adams shot it too well. Whether it was clarity, stability, or shooting angle, it was close to professional standards. It gave people the feeling that it was a posed shot. Moreover, the content of the video was also very shocking, especially the process of Liu Chen rushing toward the armed man. The scene of the latter shooting at Liu Chen was simply breathtaking. In such a dangerous situation, Liu Chen completed an incredible counterattack, knocking down the armed man with lightning speed, thus saving flight UD 725 and more than 400 passengers on the plane. Is this real? Could it be a prank made by some cameraman himself? Fuck, is this a clip from a movie? Don't try to fool me. It's too clear. Student Adams, please use some thought. Wouldn't it be more realistic if it's blurred? OMG, is it real or fake? This hero is from China? This doesn't make sense. Go eat *T. Too fake. Whoever believes it is an idiot. I don't believe it either. However, these doubts and abusive comments were quickly slapped in the face. Because soon, media reporters confirmed through interviews with the passengers of the flight that the video was completely real. It was definitely not a staged shot or a scene from a certain movie or TV show. Then, the resourceful CNK bought the copyright of the video from Adams at a high price and broadcast it on their news channel immediately. CNK was the largest TV station in the United States, and its news program was broadcast in more than 30 countries around the world. Its influence was undoubtedly very great. Therefore, when this video news was released, it not only caused a sensation in the United States but also had a certain impact around the world. It was rebroadcast by many authorized TV stations. As the initiator, Adams' personal circle in Tbuk was full of people. While everyone praised him for his courage and means, they were all asking who the hero in this video was. Adams responded quickly, saying that he did not know the name and nationality of the protagonist. He judged that it should be a Chinese sitting in business class. The specific situation was probably only known by the FAA and the FBI. In fact, at this time the FAA and the FBI were very embarrassed. The former had just announced that the incident was not serious, but the leaked video proved that their definition of the word serious had serious problems. The FBI's negligence allowed Adams to take advantage of the loophole, which was also a big loss of face. However, the two of them could do nothing. After all, this did not involve national security. It was completely an accident, and they could not punish Adams according to the relevant regulations. Moreover, the secretly filmed video had been spread all over the world. It would be a waste of effort to cover it up. Under the pressure of public opinion, the FAA and the FBI had no choice but to announce again that they would release the results of the investigation as soon as possible to give an explanation to all the people who were concerned about this incident. But the media was too lazy to pay attention to the FAA and the FBI. Like the people of the United States, they were most concerned about, who was this hero from China? Chapter 7:12. Who was this hero from China? The FAA and the FBA definitely had accurate intelligence, but the US media would not target these two bureaucracies because they were too familiar with their behavior. Asking them would be a waste of time. Therefore, Jinmei Airlines was severely harassed, and the crew members of Flight UD-725 were also affected. However, Jinmei Airlines also had their own principles. They were determined not to disclose the information of their passengers. As for the flight attendants on this flight, they also had limited information. Jinmei Airlines also issued a gag order to the flight attendants. Before the federal agency's investigation was completed, they were not allowed to disclose any information to the public. After all, they did not dare to offend the FAA. Some other media focused their attention on the video itself and invited professionals to analyze it. They really did analyze a lot of things. Combined with the interviews of the passengers on the scene, plus the video that lasted 3 minutes and 7 seconds, CNK first restored the entire incident. First, at 4:15 a.m., a passenger sitting in the middle seat of the 15th row of the economy class, who was the suspect, suddenly attacked the passenger next to him for no reason. The passenger who was attacked instinctively screamed for help, so a plainclothes air police sitting in the second row of the economy class immediately got up and stopped the suspect. However, the plainclothes air police underestimated the strength of the suspect and was knocked out by the latter. Under such circumstances, a second plainclothes air police officer stood up to rescue his companion and pulled out his gun. After many attacks and terrorist accidents, international flights in the United States were now equipped with 2 specially trained plainclothes air police officers, one of whom carried a gun. Although the air police's gun was specially made and bullets could not penetrate the cabin wall, it would still pose a fatal threat to the passengers on the plane at close range. Therefore, even though the plainclothes air police officer pulled out his gun, he did not think of immediately shooting the suspect. As a result, he was tragically killed. The suspect's skills and reflexes were very strong. In an instant, he grabbed the air police's pistol and seriously injured the latter with 1 shot. Then he fired to scare off several passengers who tried to attack. Then he threatened the passengers sitting next to the safety door to open it. It was at this moment that the hero from China appeared and took down the suspect in a matter of seconds, saving everyone on Flight UD-725. In CNK's news program, the expert first explained to everyone that the plane's safety door could not be opened while it was in flight, so the suspect's purpose was obviously not to hijack the plane. It seemed that he had a mental problem. Based on the suspect's strong performance, he suspected that the man was a specially trained police officer or soldier who suffered from some kind of mental illness, and it was because of the illness that he acted out. And it was precisely this kind of person who was very dangerous. Although the safety door could not be opened, and the pistol he snatched could not penetrate the cabin wall, it still posed a great threat to flight safety. Based on the situation at that time, if not for this hero's intervention, the heavily injured air marshal would not have survived, and the passengers who were forced to open the safety door would not have been able to escape. The consequences would have been unimaginable. Even if the plane lands safely, the expert said in an unquestionable tone, it's impossible that only one person was injured. With the video, the truth, the evidence, and the analysis, CNK's report had created a new viewership record. As for Tbuk, there was no need to mention it. Countless people were discussing it in full swing. The modern internet was terrifying, but it was also extremely efficient. Countless secrets were often easily exposed on the internet. With the evidence of the crime scene, the suspect was the first to be identified. The suspect's name was Wolf Cook, 32 years old. He was a former member of the U.S. Marine Corps. He had carried out many missions overseas and retired due to injuries in 2015. People who claimed to be Wolf's friend revealed that he suffered from PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD was a psychological disease often suffered by U.S. veterans. According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 22 veterans died of suicide in the United States every day, which was equivalent to a veteran committing suicide every 65 minutes. The total number of veterans who committed suicide each year was more than 8,000, which was equivalent to almost 20% of all suicides in the United States. PTSD was one of the biggest culprits of these tragedies. Wolf's symptoms were not particularly serious, and he was actively receiving treatment. In order to better ease his mood, he chose to travel, and the nearest stop was to China. His abnormal reaction on flight UD-725 was most likely the result of a sudden outbreak of PTSD. The truth was revealed bit by bit. Lu Chen's true identity was not hidden for too long, but it was not his friend who was exposed. Modern news spread extremely fast. Flight UD-725 was a flight from Beijing to New York. Although most of the passengers on this flight were Americans, there were also Chinese. Therefore, as soon as something happened here, the domestic news media quickly reported on it. The Singapore news agency's New York branch office and the Central Television's New York press station immediately sent reporters to the New York International Airport for on-site interviews. They also contacted the FAA spokesperson for a phone interview and passed the news of the local media back to China in a timely manner. In fact, at this time, except for a few people, no one knew that Lu Chen was on flight UD-725. Lu Chen's trip to the United States was very low-key. He did not mention it on Chin Fei Media's official V and his own blog. But when the secretly filmed video appeared on Tbuk, the situation was completely different. Although Lu Chen did not have much influence in the United States, and few Americans knew him, there were always overseas Chinese or students who watched his movies and TV series and listened to the pop songs he created. Therefore, someone recognized Lu Chen at that time, but they were not sure, so they downloaded the video and put it on a domestic website for people to identify and analyze. Many of Lu Chen's fans were dumbfounded after watching the video. Isn't this Lu Chen? Therefore, the domestic media also exploded. The same video spread rapidly on Wave's blogs, forums, Tieba, and QQ groups, and then Chin Fei Media's phone was blown up. If it weren't for the wrong time, it was estimated that a large number of reporters would have directly blocked the door. Under such circumstances, at 7:30 a.m. Beijing time on the 17th, and 19:30 a.m. New York time on the 16th, Chin Fei Media released an official statement on Wave's blog. The hero who saved flight UD-725 was confirmed to be Lu Chen. Chapter 713. As soon as Chin Fei Media's official statement came out, it immediately set off a climax of domestic public opinion. Lu Chen's fans were undoubtedly the most excited because their favorite idol had just done a great thing that caused a sensation in the world, and it was an absolutely positive heroic deed. Damn, this is too awesome, I'm so proud. The video from Tbuk was crazily pushed to more places by De Chen's fans, such as blog forums, QQ groups, and WeChat moments. As for the domestic media, it was also boiling. The portal website reacted the fastest. It directly put up the headlines with all kinds of blood-boiling and thrilling titles, and they were all big and bold. As for the TV stations and other official media outlets, their attitudes were relatively reserved and cautious. However, the big TV stations had to pay attention to the direction of public opinion. The small local TV stations were much less principled and directly broadcasted the 3-minute video from their morning news programs. This time, many ordinary people who didn't go online saw it, and they were all shocked and amazed. To be honest, even when Lu Chen's fans saw the video for the first time, they felt unbelievable. Although everyone knew that Lu Chen had good skills, and he wasn't comparable to those little fresh meat stars who sold their faces. Lu Chen saved Tian Tian at the scene of the party in Hangzhou, and beat up the little Japanese bodyguard while filming in Jeju Island. These are all stories that fans relish. But this time the situation was completely different. First of all, on an international flight he faced a strong man with a deadly weapon, and it was said that he was a member of the US Marine Corps. That was a real elite. No matter how high one's martial arts was, they would still be afraid of a kitchen knife. Everyone knew that flesh and blood couldn't fight against guns at all. This was the real world, not the fantasy plane in YY novels. Didn't you see the passengers in the cabin being silent under the threat of a small pistol? No one resisted at all? And at the most critical moment, Lu Chen resolutely stepped forward and faced the muzzle of the gun. What kind of courage and boldness did this take? Lu Chen wasn't a barefooted desperado. He was able to do such a move, and it was by no means a hothead. He succeeded. Not only did he dodge the incoming bullets, but he also defeated his powerful opponent in one fell swoop, turning the tide. How could such an idol not be loved and worshipped? The only regrettable thing for fans was that, until now, apart from the official statement of Qinfei Media, the well-deserved leading actor Lu Chen has not made a sound. The latest blog post on his blog was posted the day before yesterday. As a result, countless fans swarmed into Lu Chen's blog and started a general discussion in his comments section. My Chen is mighty. Summoning Lu Chen big, please show your face, show your chest, show your thighs. I, Chen, am going to shock the entire United States. The people of Shanghai have sent a congratulatory message, congratulating me for making a name for myself in the outer realm and saving the people of the United States from disaster. The people of Mountain City send their congratulations. Do you think Big Lu Chen is injured? Tui, go to hell with your jinx. Pray for peace. In the past, in Lu Chen's blog, there was always a small group of anti-fans jumping up and down, saying sour words, spitting dirty water, and disgusting people even if they can't win. This time all the anti-fans disappeared, and the wind in the comment area was completely one-sided. Who dared to say bad things about Lu Chen? Being scolded to death was already a light punishment. Did he really think that people wouldn't launch a human flesh attack? It could be said that with this incident, Lu Chen's reputation and popularity in and out of the circle reached a new peak. There were also some fans who did not pay attention to Waves's blog, but to Tbook instead. Because they found that the people of the United States still didn't know the true identity of Lu Chen, and there were even media outlets on Tbook asking for news at a high price. How could this be? Let's not talk about whether anyone went to get the reward from the American media. There were not a few Chinese people who played Tbook, including Lu Chen's fans. They immediately posted all kinds of information about Lu Chen on their respective Tbooks, including Lu Chen's personal photos, songs, film and television works, etc. All of them were posted. These pictures and facts, information made the American media feel like they had found a treasure. Then they found out that this hero was not only a real Chinese, but also a big star in China's entertainment industry. This was really amazing. Countless American netizens who found out the truth ran across the Pacific to China according to the information provided by the Chinese people on Tbook and left a lot of comments on Lu Chen's Waves blog. The words used by these foreigners were much more exaggerated, all kinds of shocking, all kinds of worship and respect. Then their messages were translated by netizens who understood English, and it gave a big wave of popularity. The social networks in China and the United States were boiling because of Lu Chen alone. At this time, Lu Chen was still sleeping soundly in the Hilton Hotel in Manhattan. His personal phone was on the bedside table charging. The only person who could directly contact Lu Chen was probably Li Mushi, but there were only a few relatives and friends who could find Li Mushi, and Li Mushi didn't want to disturb his rest. Therefore, for the outside world, Lu Chen was temporarily in a state of uncontactable, until he was awakened by the sound of the bedside phone. What time is it? Lu Chen tried to open his sleepy eyes and found that the sky was completely dark. He reached out and grabbed the phone in a daze and put it to his ear. Hello? A somewhat familiar voice came from the phone. Mr. Lu Chen, I'm sorry to disturb you. The other party spoke English. Lu Chen suddenly woke up. Mr. Morpheus from the FBI? The other party was surprised. Mr. Lu's memory is really good. I'm Morpheus. This Mr. Morpheus was the FBI official who talked to Lu Chen at the Air Force Base. Because his accent was a little special, Lu Chen remembered it very clearly and recognized him immediately. As for how the other party called his room, Lu Chen didn't even bother to ask. Was it difficult for the FBI to track his whereabouts? Hello, Mr. Morpheus, what can I do for you? Morpheus smiled and said, Mr. Lu, you're now a hero in the news and social media. here's the thing, we in the FAA will hold a press conference tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, mainly to explain the truth of the UD 725 incident to the public. We hope you can also attend. Lu Chen thought about it and felt that there was no harm in this matter, so he said, no problem. Morpheus was very happy. That's good, we'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning. Also, our president already knows about your heroic deeds. Chapter 7:14. The President of the United States? Morpheus' last sentence made Lu Chen feel a little overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. The current President of the United States, Roxanne Lester, was the first female president in the history of the United States. Her grandfather, McAdam Lester, was also the 40th President of the United States. This female president, who came from a political family, was smart and powerful. She enjoyed a high reputation in the United States and internationally. She also won the Nobel Peace Prize. This year was already her second term in office. Lu Chen had seen Roxanne in the domestic news many times. He did not expect to have an encounter with the female president of the United States. It could only be said that fate was a wonderful thing. After ending the call with the FBI, Lu Chen was completely awake. He picked up the phone that was already fully charged. He turned it on and saw that it was 8:40 p.m. in the United States. He had slept long enough, but unfortunately he still had to deal with jet lag. Beep, beep, beep. As Lu Chen was thinking, the mobile phone in his hand suddenly made a vibrating sound, and it was a continuous vibration. The phone had received a large number of messages. Lu Chen's mobile phone was equipped with a private number card. In the address book, other than family members, there were also friends. Only the phone on the address book list could make calls, including short messages. The number of messages was very surprising. He skimmed through them and found that almost everyone had called him and sent him a different number of messages. It seemed like things were getting out of hand. Lu Chen hurriedly called his mother, sister, and girlfriend. He told them that he was staying in the hotel safely and told them not to worry about him. He would return to China soon. At this time, Lu Chen found out that someone had released a video of him on the flight on the internet. It was because the video was uploaded to China that he was recognized. At present, his identity had been completely exposed. Lu Chen was mentally prepared for this. Anyway, even if he did not expose it today, he would not be able to hide it from the press conference tomorrow. It was just a matter of time. He spoke to Chen Feier for the longest time. First, he asked about the situation in China. Then, Lu Chen persuaded his girlfriend to give up the idea of coming to the United States in person. Until the doorbell rang. After informing Chen Feier, he hung up the phone and ran out to open the door. It was Li Mushi who appeared at the door, followed by a hotel waiter who was pushing a dining cart. Are you awake? Li Mushi chuckled. I originally wanted to treat you to a feast tonight, but I know that you must be very busy right now. You don't even have time to answer my call, right? So I asked the hotel to send dinner up. Lu Chen was really hungry. He smiled and said, thank you so much. The waiter pushed the dining cart in and skillfully placed the exquisite dishes on the dining table in the suite. Finally, he put flowers and candles on the table. Li Mushi took out a tip and sent the waiter away. Then she sat at the table with Lu Chen. Lu Chen didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up his knife and fork and started eating heartily. Li Mushi had already had her dinner. She poured herself a glass of red wine and slowly sipped it in her hand. She looked at Lu Chen unscrupulously with a pair of charming eyes. Although the two sides were already very familiar with each other, Li Mushi's eyes still made Lu Chen feel creepy. He couldn't help but ask, Sister Mushi, why are you looking at me like this? Don't you recognize me? Li Mushi chuckled, put down her glass and said, I don't recognize you a little. I didn't expect you to become a hero of the Americans. Why are you so bold? Are you really not afraid? Lu Chen said frankly, it's definitely a lie to say that I'm not afraid at all. But at the time, someone had to stand up and stop him. Otherwise, the situation would be unpredictable. And I was also on this flight. If something happened, I couldn't escape. I had no choice. To be honest, the situation at that time was really too dangerous. Even if his reaction was half a second slower, the result was likely to be death on the plane. Now that he thought about it, he was still a little scared. But if Lu Chen had to do it all over again, he would still choose to take the risk without hesitation. Li Mushi looked at Lu Chen in a daze. There was a complicated look in her eyes. There was something that was a little unclear. After a moment, she hurriedly avoided Lu Chen's puzzled eyes. Probably because of the red wine, her face was faintly flushed. She hurriedly got up and said, I'm a little drunk. I'll go back to my room to rest first. Lu Chen was a little puzzled. The Li Mushi in front of him was not like her usual appearance. She was a lot more feminine, and she was even hesitating when she spoke. But he didn't think too much about it. He got up and said, "I'll walk you out." By the way, Lu Chen briefly told Li Mushi about the FBI informing him to attend the press conference tomorrow. Li Mushi said without hesitation, "I'll go with you." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Okay." He walked Li Mushi out of the room and then came back to finish the late dinner. In the middle, Lu Chen received a call from Liao Jia. "You're so awesome." Liao Jia shouted on the phone, "I've watched your video 3 times. I didn't expect you to be so awesome." Lu Chen said with a smile, "In fact, it's also luck. It's hard to say if I repeat it again." "You don't need to be modest." Liao Jia said, "To be honest, I've only admired one person in my life. You're the second one." Lu Chen didn't need to ask to know that the person who made Liao Jia admire was Gao Yi, the lead singer and soul of the band Black Raven. Gao Yi was Liao Jia's music and spiritual mentor. Even though the latter had passed away many years ago, he had never forgotten her. Lu Chen really felt very honored to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Gao Yi in Liao Jia's heart. After chatting with Liao Jia for a while, he just hung up the phone, but it rang again in less than half a minute. There was no way he could continue eating this meal. Lu Chen had no choice but to answer again. This time it was Mu Xiaochu who called him. After answering 7 or 8 calls in total, Lu Chen finally finished his dinner. He used the hotel's internal line to inform the front desk to clean up and took out his laptop to go online. As soon as he logged into the Waves blog account, Lu Chen was shocked. News is too scary. Regardless of this, Lu Chen turned over the video. After watching the video from a third party's point of view, he felt admiration for the daring photographer. This guy was really not afraid of death. He dared to take photos of the assailant and was not afraid of being shot. After thinking about it, Lu Chen picked up his mobile phone and walked to the window. He took a few photos of the brightly lit Manhattan Island outside. Then he edited and posted his first blog post since arriving in the United States on the computer. It was to tell everyone, especially his fans, that he was safe. Chapter 7:15. Thank you very much for your concern. Everything is fine at the moment. This was Lu Chen's latest blog post on the Waves blog. The content was very simple, which was to report that he was safe, and then attached a photo of the night view of Manhattan Island that had just been taken. The time he posted the blog post was at 21:55 p.m. on the 16th in New York, and it was 9:55 a.m. on the 17th in Beijing. Therefore, this blog post was like a stone thrown into a pool, and it immediately aroused a huge response. "Haha, my prayers have been answered. Lu Chen, big almighty, I have watched your video 10 times. It's so good. In the Waves blog, I only admire the blogger. Is this in Manhattan? The night view is so beautiful. My heart aches for Chen. Remember to rest well." Everyone was very worried. Now we can finally rest assured. Rest assured +1, the response of the fans was naturally extremely enthusiastic. Now, half of the hot search terms on the front page of the Waves blog were related to Lu Chen. It was really hot. Then, as soon as Lu Chen's blog post was posted, many people in the circle who didn't know each other commented and replied one after another, sending piles of blessings and praises. Some were sincere and some were completely trying to gain popularity. The entire Waves blog was boiling again because of Lu Chen. The main reason was that this incident was too special. The UD-725 flight incident was currently the hottest focus of Tbook. Countless American media and people had praised Lu Chen as a hero. Very few Chinese people had received such high praise. And his performance at the critical moment could be called a miracle. All kinds of news from the other side of the ocean spread back to China, and everyone was proud. Especially Lu Chen's fans, they were absolutely proud. The next day Lu Chen got up early. Due to the need to get over the jet lag, he forced himself to sleep again in the middle of the night last night. He didn't sleep for long. After waking up, Lu Chen first went to the bathroom to wash up. Then he practiced boxing in the living room for an hour. Finally, he took a comfortable hot bath. When Lu Chen refreshed himself and changed into a new set of clothes, Li Mushi came to his room with breakfast. But before they could finish their breakfast, the people sent by the FBI arrived. The press conference that morning was held in New York City Hall at 9:30. Although there were still 2 hours before the official start, the FBI brought him a draft. The other party was probably worried that Lu Chen would spout nonsense or make a fool of himself at the press conference, so he listed a series of questions that might be asked by the reporters. He then attached the answers as references as well as notes for attention and so on. He printed a total of 5 standard A4 papers. Lu Qin didn't reject the FBI's good intentions. He took the document and got into the FBI's car. Li Mushi accompanied him as his assistant. "Mr. Lu, we meet again." The car sent by the FBI was a long black Cadillac. When Lu Qin and Li Mushi sat in the back seat, a middle-aged man sitting in the front passenger seat turned around and greeted him with a smile. "Hello, Mr. Morpheus from the FBI." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Nice to see you again." Mr. Morpheus shrugged and said, "You'll see me often in the next few days." "There's no need," Lu Qin asked in confusion. "Is the FBI that free?" Being watched by the FBI wasn't a pleasant thing. To be honest, Lu Qin didn't want to see this Mr. Morpheus again. Morpheus said, "Ensuring your safety in the United States is my current job. I hope you can understand." Li Mushi was sensitive. "You're saying that Lu Qin might be in danger?" Her English was much better than Lu Qin's, and she even had a New York accent. Morpheus obviously knew Li Mushi's identity. He smiled and said, "Miss Li, we're just taking precautions against accidents. After all, there are always people who think differently from normal people." Li Mushi didn't say anything else. The FBI officer had a point. Lu Qin was in the limelight now and he was a Chinese. There was no guarantee that some extremists wouldn't cause trouble for him. Similar situations had happened in the past. In comparison, Lu Qin was much calmer. He wouldn't be staying in the United States for long anyway. The Cadillac blended into the traffic and soon arrived at New York City Hall. New York City Hall was located in the middle of City Hall Park in the downtown area of Lower Manhattan. It was the oldest city hall in the United States still in use. It was built in the early 19th century and was a National Historic Building. The rotunda of New York City Hall was also one of New York's landmarks. It was still the office of the New York City government, as well as the meeting place for the mayor and the New York City Council. The press conference held in New York City Hall was undoubtedly of high standard. After getting out of the car, accompanied by several government officials, Lu Qin and Li Mushi went to the lounge of the City Hall. In the lounge, Lu Qin met a deputy consul from the China Consulate General in New York. Currently, China was also paying close attention to the UD 725 incident, especially since it involved an influential celebrity like Lu Qin. Therefore, they specially arranged for a deputy consul to help Lu Qin deal with matters from the United States government. Lu Qin naturally expressed his deep gratitude for this. At 9:30, the press conference on the UD 725 incident officially started in the conference room of the City Hall. When Lu Qin, accompanied by Morpheus and 2 other City Hall officials, appeared in the conference room, the room was already filled with reporters from various media outlets. There were at least 20 to 30 cameras on the scene. As for the long and short SLR cameras, there were countless of them. As soon as Lu Qin appeared, all the cameras and SLR cameras immediately pointed at him. The shutters and the flashes of the lights were endless, and the atmosphere of the scene instantly became lively. This press conference was jointly held by the FBA, FAA, and the New York City government. The main purpose was to clarify the truth of the UD 725 incident and give the public an official explanation. As a bureaucratic organization, whether it was the FBA or the FAA, there was no such high efficiency. They would at least need to investigate for a period of time before they would hold a press conference like this. Then the 3-minute high-definition video secretly shot put the FBA and the FAA in a rather awkward position. The truth was basically analyzed and inferred by the media. If the same result was announced in a few days or a week or two, it would undoubtedly make the taxpayers laugh at the efficiency of the 2 government agencies. Bureaucratic organizations were also afraid of being called bureaucratic, which was why they held this rather hasty press conference. As for Lu Qin, he was undoubtedly the best choice for the FBA and the FAA to divert the media's attention. Chapter 7:16. 2 microphones were placed on a long table covered with dark green flannel, and a huge American flag was hung on the wall behind it. 3 officials from the FBI, FAA, and New York City were sitting upright in suits with serious expressions on their faces. After a brief introduction by the host, the press conference began. First, the FAA official reported the details of the incident on Flight UD 725. In fact, everyone already knew what happened, but the FAA official added some unknown details to his statement. After the FAA official finished, the FBI official announced the preliminary results of the investigation. Again, there was nothing new. The results of the investigation were basically the same as the media's analysis. The suspect was Wolf Cook, 32 years old, a former member of the U.S. Marine Corps with the rank of sergeant. Wolf Cook participated in many overseas missions for the U.S. military and was a recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal. He retired in 2015 due to injuries. As the media revealed, Wolf suffered from PTSD, which was an important reason for his retirement. The former member of the Marine Corps returned from a trip to China, but his PTSD acted up on the plane. He mistakenly thought that he was being hijacked and attacked by the enemy, so he lost his mind and made a huge mistake. Now he had completely calmed down and was extremely regretful of his mistake. The FBI would allow a few reporters to interview Wolf at the appropriate time. At this point, the truth of the incident on Flight UD-725 was revealed. The FBI had ruled out the possibility of a terrorist attack. It was an accident. Finally, Mr. Morpheus from the FBI expressed his gratitude to Mr. Lu Qin from China. He thanked the latter for his great courage to save more than 400 passengers on Flight UD-725 and prevent a tragedy from happening. After he finished speaking, the conference room was filled with thunderous applause. The applause was all for Lu Qin, who was sitting in the middle. Lu Qin was undoubtedly the highlight of this press conference. He firmly attracted everyone's attention. Most of the people present knew Lu Qin from the 3-minute video. However, the video was shot in the cabin and it was secretly taken. Coupled with the violent movements, it was impossible to give Lu Qin a super clear close-up. Therefore, now that he saw her face to face, the feeling was greatly different. Even a biased reporter couldn't find fault with Lu Qin's appearance. Lu Qin was tall and straight, and his facial features were chiseled and handsome. Even by Westerner standards of beauty, he was definitely one of the best. Moreover, Lu Qin was very young, and his smile gave people a warm and gentle feeling. It was hard to imagine that this seemingly easygoing big boy actually had such a powerful fighting strength. Unlike the New York Times, which was politically serious, the style of this newspaper was more social. For example, its reporter was a beautiful blonde with blue eyes. And the major newspaper reporters in the United States had one thing in common, which was that their interview questions were very bold and direct, which was quite difficult to deal with. If ordinary people were faced with their continuous questions, it would be very easy to deal with them. So before coming, the FBA provided Lu Qin with an interview draft so that he would be mentally prepared. But neither James from the New York Times nor the blonde from the Daily News were included in the draft. Lu Qin smiled calmly and said, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." Lu Qin's answer made everyone's eyes light up. Chapter 717. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. Lu Qin's words were not only in line with his own deeds, but also contained a deep meaning and a considerable social philosophy. It was also easy to understand and had the charm of a maxim. The greater one's ability was, the greater the responsibility one should bear. However, in this world there were many people who had great ability or strength but chose to be selfish and only care about their own interests. In contrast, the courage and responsibility that Lu Qin showed were truly admirable. He knew the danger at the time, and it was impossible for him to ignore the power of the bullets. However, in such a dangerous situation he resolutely rushed to Wolf Cook, who was out of control. In addition to his ability, the most important thing was that Lu Qin had the will to bear the responsibility that matched his ability. Now that I think about the situation at the time, I'm also afraid. But if I were to turn back time, I don't think my choice would change. Stopping Mr. Wolf Cook's irrational behavior was not only to save everyone on the UD-725 flight, but also to save myself. If I were to evaluate my own behavior, I think I did it with a clear conscience. Thank you. When Lu Qin's voice fell, there was a thunderous applause in the conference room of the New York City Hall. Many reporters stood up and applauded for his wonderful answer, and even gave him a thumbs up. The reporters who were qualified to sit here were all from well-known local media in the United States. They were by no means easily convinced, but their admiration for Lu Qin made them abandon all prejudices and send the warmest and most sincere applause. This scene was faithfully recorded by the cameras on the scene and transmitted back to the TV station in real time. Then, it was transmitted to the televisions of thousands of households through cable and wireless networks. In fact, it was not the first time that Lu Qin had said the phrase, "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." The last time he said the same thing was in Hangzhou when he was also asked by reporters, and it was also because of his heroic behavior. Lu Qin's veteran fans were certainly familiar with this phrase, but the Americans had never heard it before. Therefore, through the dissemination of media reporters, it was quickly known and regarded as a real maxim. Later, when Hollywood's Lions Pictures filmed the movie One Flew Across the Pacific, based on the UD-725 incident, they used this sentence as the theme of the movie. Of course, this was all later. The press conference continued, and the reporters were even more enthusiastic in their interviews. Of course, they basically used the precious opportunity to ask questions on Lu Qin, leaving the officials of the FBI, FAA, and New York City government to the side. However, these officials did not care. Instead, they were happy to do so. They relaxed and happily watched Lu Qin communicate with the reporters. A reporter asked, "Mr. Lu Qin, did you come to the United States this time for tourism or to seek career development?" According to the revelations on the internet, the reporters present knew that Lu Qin was not an ordinary person, but a big star in the Chinese entertainment industry. He had released albums, made movies and TV, and had a high popularity in China. They were naturally very interested in this and guessed whether Lu Qin came to the United States with the intention of developing in Hollywood. This speculation was not the imagination of the reporters. Because Hollywood was the dream factory of the world's movies, it was the dream place of actors from all over the world. In the past, there were many stars from China who came to Hollywood to make a living. However, there were very few who succeeded. But Lu Qin was different. After experiencing the UD-725 incident, he had become familiar with the majority of the American people. It was equivalent to holding a VIP ticket to Hollywood, and he was qualified to knock on the door of any American film company. Not to mention anything else, the UD-725 incident itself was enough to make a blockbuster. Lu Qin himself was the best choice for the protagonist. In the eyes of the reporters, as long as Lu Qin had a little bit of brains, even if he came to the United States for tourism, he could say that he was looking for opportunities to cooperate with Hollywood. Then, there would definitely be a lot of film companies coming to him to give him the opportunity. Lucky China kid. Many reporters labeled Lu Qin in their hearts. However, Lu Qin's answer was beyond everyone's expectations. "This is my first time in the United States. The purpose of this visit is mainly to participate in business negotiations, because the online crowdfunding in which I hold shares is preparing to go public on NASDAQ." Lu Qin was not a fool. How could he not know what the reporters were thinking? But now he really didn't pay much attention to Hollywood, which everyone was flocking to, so he took the opportunity to advertise on the online crowdfunding website. This advertisement is worth at least millions of dollars, right? The reporter who asked the question was stunned and asked incredulously, "Are you a shareholder of the online crowdfunding website?" The online crowdfunding website first appeared in China, but after Li Mushi accepted it, she quickly pushed the online crowdfunding website to the world, establishing branches in the United States and Europe, and vigorously promoting the online crowdfunding model. This new online fundraising model, with its uniqueness and convenience, was quickly pursued by netizens and small entrepreneurs, and its market potential was favored by investors, so it was able to prepare for listing on NASDAQ so quickly. This reporter happened to have been in contact with and participated in online crowdfunding, and had a certain understanding of the US online crowdfunding website, so he was very surprised. He didn't expect that Lu Qin was actually a shareholder of the online crowdfunding website. In addition to him, there were many reporters present who knew about the online crowdfunding website. Everyone was equally surprised and couldn't help but pricking up their ears to listen to Lu Qin's answer. Lu Qin replied, "Yes, I personally hold 10% of the founder's shares of the online crowdfunding website." Since he had advertised for the online crowdfunding website, he might as well make it bigger. He was not afraid of exposing his details because once the online crowdfunding website went public, the shareholder information would be made public to all investors, and it would be impossible to hide it. Founder's shares. The reporter was stunned. "Are you the founder of the online crowdfunding website?" Lu Qin nodded with a smile. The audience suddenly burst into an uproar. This is too Hollywood. Lu Qin is from the mysterious eastern country, China. He is tall, handsome, young and handsome. He is a well-known film, television and singer star in China, and has extraordinary skills and courage. He has just become a hero in the minds of the American people. Apart from his skin color, he is already the template of a Hollywood protagonist. Now he is said to be a founding shareholder of an internet company with infinite potential and about to go public. He is simply the protagonist of the protagonist. The reporters suddenly found that there was so much more to write when they went back. What else is there? Lu Qin is simply a deeply buried treasure house. The more he excavates, the more treasures are revealed. Almost all the reporters raised their hands again. Chapter 7:18. The press conference on Flight UD 725 held in New York City Hall lasted for 2 hours. Lu Chen was undoubtedly the real focus of attention. Later, it almost became his exclusive interview. If the host hadn't announced the end of the interview in time, perhaps the reporters would have continued to ask questions. And the final climax of this press conference appeared near the end. New York City Mayor Middleton Fergus actually appeared in the conference room. He came to give Lu Chen a very special reward: the Certificate of New York City Honorary Citizen. Middleton Fergus was one of the core figures of the Democratic Party. It was said that at the age of 55, he intended to run for the next U.S. president and enjoyed a high political reputation in the U.S. The arrival of the thin, gray-haired mayor of New York City was surprising, and the honorary certificate he personally awarded to Lu Chen was undoubtedly another surprise. The title of New York City Honorary Citizen was not so easy to obtain. It had to be awarded to foreigners who had made great contributions to New York and had considerable social influence. Generally speaking, the award of New York City Honorary Citizen needed to be approved by the City Council. Even if Lu Chen was eligible to receive this honor, it needed a series of procedures from the City Hall to complete it. However, during the term of the Mayor of New York City, there were 2 direct awards. The honorary citizen that Lu Chen received was one of the awards held by Middleton Fergus. This was rarer than being approved by the City Council, so it inevitably caused a sensation at the scene. New York City Honorary Citizen not only represented an honor. With this status, foreigners could enjoy a lot of benefits, such as entry and exit of New York, residence time, work permits, etc. It would be very convenient to apply for U.S. citizenship. Lu Chen was not the first Chinese person to receive the title of New York City Honorary Citizen, but it was definitely the first in the domestic entertainment industry. It was undoubtedly a commendable honor. After Mayor Middleton awarded the certificate to Lu Chen, he chatted with him cordially and took a photo with him. At this point, the press conference was truly over. Back in the lounge, Lu Chen's forehead was covered with fine sweat. These media reporters were much more difficult to deal with than domestic entertainment reporters, and many of the questions were quite tricky. He had to deal with them to avoid being caught by the loopholes in his words. "Your performance can be said to be perfect." Li Mushi gave him a thumbs up. "To be honest, I admire you very much." Li Mushi watched the entire press conference as Lu Chen's assistant. She was impressed by Lu Chen's performance. American reporters weren't easy to mess with. To be able to persist for such a long time and not make any mistakes after being asked so many questions, he was really extraordinary. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, if this continues, I won't be able to hold on much longer." Li Mushi smiled and said, "Then let's go back. Have a good rest. The negotiation with those people on Wall Street can be postponed for a few days. I believe they won't have any objections." This time, Lu Chen has also given a wave of beautiful advertising publicity to the online crowdfunding website. When the news is broadcast, it will inevitably let more people know about the online crowdfunding website. Big will undoubtedly increase the online crowdfunding website's chips to be listed on NASDAQ. Nowadays, Lu Chen, in the eyes of the Americans, has a heroic aura, and his favorability is max. He appeared in the public eye as the founder of the crowdfunding website, and the publicity effect is really stronger than any advertisement. When Lu Chen specifically mentioned the online crowdfunding website, Li Mushi simply wanted to hug him and kiss him hard. She has more confidence to negotiate with the vampires on Wall Street. The 2 returned to the Hilton Hotel together. Lunch was treated by Li Mushi in the luxury restaurant of the Hilton Hotel, and Wang Yan was also there. Until now, Wang Yan has finally recovered from her state of panic. Since arriving in New York, she has been in touch with her relatives and friends in China. The taste of experiencing a life-and-death crisis is really hard to describe in words. Just after lunch, Li Mushi received a phone call. She chatted with the other party in English for a few minutes, then hung up and looked at Lu Chen with a strange look. Lu Chen couldn't help touching his face and asked, "What's wrong?" Li Mushi's eyes seemed to have a flower on his face. Li Mushi asked very seriously, "Do you know who called me just now?" Lu Chen was speechless. "How would I know?" Li Mushi showed a proud smile. "It's Irene Christian's assistant." Before Lu Chen could react, Wang Yan was shocked first. "Irene Christian? No way." Lu Chen also remembered who this Irene Christian was. She is the queen of the American talk show. Irene's talk show is the ace program of New York TV in the United States. Since it began broadcasting in 1997, it has maintained the #1 ratings of the same type of program for 20 years. It is also the longest-running daytime TV talk show in the history of the United States. In the United States, This program has an audience of more than 30 million people every week. It is broadcast in more than 100 countries and regions overseas. It is known as the most watched talk show in the history of TV. It has won 35 Emmy Awards and has a great influence. Irene Christian is the well-deserved queen of talk shows. She was born in Queens, New York. Her family was poor since she was a child. Her father died early and her mother was a drug addict. She completely relied on her own hard work to finish college. Later, she entered New York TV as a program assistant. Also relying on her own hard work and talent, she completed the gorgeous transformation from assistant to program editor, and then to program host, becoming an inspirational idol in the hearts of countless Americans. Li Mushi and Wang Yan both studied and worked in the United States, so they are very clear about what Irene Christian's name means. Li Mushi said with a smile, Irene Christian invited Lu Qin on her program. Those who are qualified to be invited on the program by the Queen of Talk Shows are all current hot people. They must have a great influence and it is also an honor for the invitees. However, even though Lu Qin knew the name of the Queen of Talk Shows, he did not have much of an impression, let alone feel flattered. Instead, he was more curious about how the other party's assistant called Li Mushi's cell phone. New York TV contacted China first. Lu Shi told them your contact information and mine. Li Mushi waved the cell phone and said, Irene's assistant contacted me first. Chapter 719. After the press conference held by the FBI and the FAA on the UD-725 flight incident, in addition to the live broadcast of the relevant news videos and interviews, the follow-up content was quickly broadcast on major TV stations and quickly appeared on the home page of newspapers in the United States. At the same time, these news videos were also transmitted to all parts of the world, of course including China. The domestic public opinion was already in a state of boiling, and this time it was like adding fuel to the fire. For a time, Lu Chen's photos could be seen everywhere on domestic TV stations, newspapers, magazines and online media. On Wave's blog, the number of Lu Chen's fans exceeded the 70 million mark, surpassing Chen Fei's 10 million, becoming the star with the most fans in the entertainment industry. Countless fans poured into his blog to leave praises. But there are also fans who are worried. They are worried about whether Lu Chen, who has just been awarded the title of Honorary Citizen of New York City, will choose to emigrate. With this title, if Lu Chen wants to emigrate to the United States, there will be no difficulty at all. The Immigration Service of the United States guarantees that they will welcome him with open hands. With Lu Chen's current exposure and popularity in the United States, once he emigrates to the United States, and then enters Hollywood to develop, none of the 7 major film companies in the United States will not open their doors to him. Such a temptation, I am afraid, is hard to refuse. In the past, there were many popular domestic stars who sharpened their heads to Hollywood. Many of them have emigrated to the United States, but few have been successful. Lu Chen's conditions are much better than theirs. The worries of these fans are not unreasonable, and even caused a lot of reaction and debate in Lu Chen's fan group. However, that night, Lu Chen said on his blog that if there is a chance, he is willing to cooperate with Hollywood film companies, but he has no idea of emigrating to the United States. He said on his blog, I was born here, grew up here, sang and cried here, and would like to sleep here forever. Lu Chen's statement immediately calmed all the debates on whether he should emigrate to the United States on the domestic internet and made him more popular. The day after the press conference, Lu Chen followed Li Mushi to participate in negotiations with Wall Street investors. This was a business negotiation that had originally been scheduled, involving the key to the listing of online crowdfunding on NASDAQ. At present, whether in terms of market scale, response and profit prospects, online crowdfunding has met the requirements for listing on NASDAQ, but meeting the requirements and going public are not the same thing. To put it simply, if you wanted to make money in someone else's territory, you had to abide by the rules of the game set by them. Otherwise, they wouldn't even let you play no matter how mature you were. Crowdfunding is listed on NASDAQ, and shares and share value are very important. First of all, Li Mushi's shares are too high, and must be diluted to introduce more investors to form the so-called healthy listing ratio. In addition, U.S. underwriters and brokers were required to underwrite the shares, and a portion of the profits had to be split. Therefore, any foreign company that wanted to be listed on NASDAQ had to go through a fierce process. Li Mushi had been in the United States for several months and had conducted countless negotiations with Wall Street investors. Lu Chen didn't really understand much about these business matters, but as the founder of online crowdfunding and with 10% of the founder's shares, he couldn't stay out of it. In order to ensure that the online crowdfunding could finally be successfully listed on Nasdaq and not let Li Mushi's hard work go to waste, he was duty-bound. The location of the negotiation was in the conference room at the headquarters of Dawson Investment Bank on Wall Street. When Lu Qin and Li Mushi stepped into the Dawson Bank conference room with their assistants and lawyers, many Wall Street elites who had been waiting inside stood up and welcomed them with warm applause. Li Mushi had never enjoyed such treatment before. Their applause was for Lu Qin, because now Lu Qin was a hero in the eyes of the American people. These elites came up to shake hands with Lu Qin, appearing very enthusiastic and not stingy with their praise. But when they sat down again to start negotiations, they refused to budge on the issue of interests. The whole morning passed in a battle of words. On the way back, Lu Qin sighed and said, "Fortunately, I chose to sing instead of doing business. Otherwise, negotiating with these people would be exhausting." Lu Qin was absolutely sincere. He didn't lack business ideas, but he didn't have a shrewd mind that was good at scheming. No matter how many good ideas he had, they would only be a wedding dress for others. During the whole negotiation process in the morning, Lu Qin basically listened. When it came to his own interests, it was up to Wang Yan to negotiate. He was completely a symbolic existence. Lu Qin didn't think there was anything wrong with this. If he went to negotiate by himself, it was estimated that he would be gnawed clean by these Wall Street elites in the end. Li Mushi said with a smile, "There's been a big breakthrough this time and you've contributed to it." The key to the breakthrough was yesterday's press conference. Lu Qin really made a good advertisement for the online crowdfunding, which greatly enhanced the popularity of the online crowdfunding and added chips to today's negotiations. So Li Mushi was in a very relaxed mood. She answered a phone call in the car, hung up after a few words and then said to Lu Qin, "I still have something to do. I'll take you to the hotel gate. Can you solve your lunch by yourself? Wang Yan also needs to come with me." Lu Qin didn't think too much about it and said, "No problem. If there's anything we'll contact each other by phone." At the entrance of the Hilton Hotel, Li Mushi put Lu Qin down by himself. When she said goodbye, she smiled mysteriously and said, "Then you should pay attention to your health. Don't work too hard." Lu Qin nodded, a little puzzled. But soon he knew what was going on. Back in his room, Lu Qin had just opened the door with his room card when a beautiful figure with a fragrant wind rushed into his arms, giving him a warm and fragrant embrace. "Why are you here?" Lu Qin couldn't believe his eyes, because the person he was holding in his arms was Chen Fei. Chen Fei smiled and said, "Why can't I come? I missed you so I came." At this moment, Lu Qin's mood really couldn't be described in words. He closed the door with his foot, picked up Chen Fei and strode towards the bedroom with her in his arms. At this time there was no need to say anything, just show it with action. Chapter 720. In the luxurious bedroom of the Hilton Hotel, the sound that made people's blood boil lasted for a long time and finally subsided. Chen Fei's crystal-like forehead was covered with fine sweat, and a few strands of beautiful black hair stuck to it, which had a different kind of charm. Her pretty face was flushed and her eyes were closed, like a cat that had just been fed, enjoying the aftertaste of satisfaction. Lu Qin held her with his left hand, and his right hand wandered around the thin silk quilt, which made his girlfriend moan. "Stop it, it's itchy." Lu Qin smiled, hugged her tighter and asked, "Did you collude with Li Mushi?" In the car on the way back to the hotel, Li Mushi was acting strange. She must have known in advance that Chen Fei would come. Otherwise, how could Chen Fei stay in the room and give him a big surprise? This business suite at the Hilton Hotel was booked by Li Mushi. Chen Fei said with a smile, "What do you mean collude? I didn't let Mushi tell you." Lu Qin said helplessly, "You came here like this. Huiro Studio is going to be shut down, right? You from the Star was in full swing in China and South Korea, and the shooting work of the crew was undoubtedly very tight. Before Lu Qin came to the United States, he negotiated with the director Fang Hui to modify the shooting plan so that he could squeeze out time. Now that Chen Fei also flew to the United States, the crew was bound to be greatly affected. Chen Fei moved her body to make herself more comfortable in Lu Qin's arms, and said irresponsibly, "Then I don't care. I just want to accompany you." Lu Qin was moved and couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her on the cheek. "It's okay to stop. At most, we'll broadcast one episode a week for a few weeks. It's nothing more than an apology to the audience and fans. In fact, it's not a big deal." "It's so good to have you," he said silently in his heart. A strange sound came from under the quilt, breaking the warm and sweet atmosphere between the two sides. "Ah." Qin Fei suddenly blushed. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Are you very hungry? I'll ask the hotel to send the food up." The service in the Hilton Hotel was very good. Whenever guests wanted to eat, they could lie in bed and open their exclusive app on their mobile phone to order food. It was very convenient and there was no time limit. Qin Fei covered her face with the quilt and said in a low voice, "I didn't eat anything on the plane." Lu Qin laughed, picked up the phone on the bedside table and ordered a romantic meal for them. When the two of them got up and put on their clothes, an exquisite and delicious meal was sent to their room by the hotel waiter. When they got up and put on their clothes, the room they were in, the room and the hotel, the Lu Star. Qin Fei was, of course, asking about Lu Chen's experience on flight UD 725. Although she had learned about the whole process of the incident from the media and watched the 3-minute video, it was another thing to hear Lu Chen say it himself. When Lu Chen finished, she couldn't help but hold Lu Chen's hand and said, "Next time don't be so impulsive." Although Lu Chen said it very easily, how could she not know the danger at that time? Wolf Cook shot at Lu Chen and he was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps. Qin Fei's palm was cold. Lu Chen nodded and said, "I know, I'll be careful next time." Qin Fei shook her head and said, "I was wrong. There won't be a next time." Her expression was very serious. Lu Chen was speechless and could only change the topic. "By the way, did you get the visa so quickly?" It took 10 hours to fly from Beijing to New York. It was Qin Fei's first time in the United States. Usually it would take 3 days to get an express tourist visa. Of course, this time she got the visa and passport, so it would be much easier next time. The tourist passport was valid for 10 years. So Lu Chen was very puzzled. Wasn't it too fast? Speaking of this, Qin Fei was very proud. "I used my connections and then the US Embassy gave me special treatment. The main reason was because of you. They were very easy to talk to." So that was the case. Lu Chen suddenly understood. "Since we're here, let's play in the United States for a few more days." Okay. Qin Fei was very happy, but she thought of a very important problem. How do we explain it to the fans? It didn't matter if the two of them played in the United States for a few more days, but the filming and broadcast of You from the Star would definitely be delayed. At that time, the fans and audience would probably be angry. Simple. Lu Chen immediately took the phone and said, "Let's take a photo, explain the situation and apologize. They will understand." Fans were a very cute group. As long as they treated each other sincerely, they were very tolerant of their favorite stars. "Let me," Qin Fei grabbed the phone and instructed Lu Chen to pose with her. They took more than a dozen photos in one breath. Then she picked out the most satisfactory one and posted it on her account on Wave's blog. The title was, "I just flew to New York to accompany someone asking for blessings." As soon as Qin Fei's blog post was published, it immediately attracted the attention and comments of countless fans. My Fei really flew to the United States. A candlelight dinner, so romantic. Big dog food was suddenly fed to me. I didn't even brush my teeth in the morning. Don't say anything, let's give it a like first. I guessed it a long time ago. Blessings? The fans naturally gave all kinds of likes and sent their blessings. Of course, there were also complaints of being fed dog food. Everyone was very surprised because Beijing and New York were separated by the ocean, and it would take more than 10 hours to fly there. It was really touching that Qin Fei ran to New York to accompany Lu Chen so quickly. Their blessings were also completely sincere. Looking at the entire domestic entertainment industry, it was really impossible to find a better celebrity couple than Lu Chen and Qin Fei. As fans, everyone also hoped that the two could be in love for a long time. It proved that true love was always there. Then Lu Chen followed up with a blog post, apologizing to all the fans and the audience of Xingyu. He said that due to personal reasons, there would be changes to the filming plan of Xingyu, and asked for everyone's understanding. In other words, the broadcast of the follow-up episodes of Xingyu would be delayed, but the fans overwhelmingly expressed their understanding. They wanted the two to have a good time in the United States and make up for it when they returned to China. The fans were actually very easy to talk to. The key was in their attitude. Some celebrities did not understand or did not care. They always treated their fans high and mighty, and as a result, there would not be many supporters left. In this regard, Lu Chen and Qin Fei did their best. After settling the fans, the two of them could have an unexpected sweet vacation in the United States. However, it was not like Lu Chen had nothing to do. Other than attending the business negotiations, he still had to participate in the recording of Irene's talk show. Chapter 721. On the second day Chen Fei arrived in New York, Lu Chen accompanied her to tour the most famous city in the world. The two of them took photos in front of the Statue of Liberty, fed pigeons in Central Park, visited the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and went shopping in Times Square at night, enjoying the prosperity and scenery of the city without restraint. On the third day, Lu Chen was invited to participate in the recording of the new episode of Aaron's talk show. According to the New York TV station, this episode of Aaron's talk show already had invited guests, but it was this celebrity who suggested to Aaron to let Lu Chen participate in the show first. This was because she admired Lu Chen's bravery and fearlessness. Therefore, Aaron's talk show had a rare last-minute change of guests. The recording was in the afternoon. The New York TV station sent a special car to bring Lu Chen and Chen Fei to the TV station headquarters. Although the latter was not a guest, he could get a seat in the audience. In the backstage of the studio, Lu Chen met the talk show host who was named the most powerful woman in the entertainment industry by Forbes magazine, Irene Christian. Irene Christian was 47 years old this year. She was slender and slightly thin. She had short blonde hair and a pair of blue eyes. Her smile made people unconsciously like her, and she had a unique temperament and charm. Lu Chen had heard of this famous host for a long time. He had watched several episodes of her talk show online and had left a deep impression. Irene Christian's show used social hot spots and controversial topics that people cared about as its theme. It never followed the popular shows of others, and thus established a unique and distinct style. In similar shows, her competitors often made the guests confess their personal secrets, or showed the dysfunctional individuals and families of the guests, or even took pleasure in exposing and humiliating the guests in trouble. However, Irene found ways to comfort and help the guests who encountered life or emotional setbacks and hardships, so that they could improve themselves from the bottom of their hearts. She dug a vent for the people who were suffering from mental torture, so that they could happily release their depression. This won her the respect of countless people. "Hello, Mr. Lu Chen." Irene extended her hand to Lu Chen. "Welcome to my show, our hero." Lu Chen smiled and said, "It's my honor. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to participate in your show." He shook hands with Irene and introduced Chen Fei. "This is my girlfriend, Chen Fei." Chen Fei smiled. "Hello, Ms. Irene. I'm a fan of yours." Irene was pleasantly surprised. "Lu, you have an angel." She didn't shake hands with Chen Fei. Instead, she gave the latter a warm hug. She didn't hide her fondness for Chen Fei at all. "Miss Chen Fei, how about you and Mr. Lu appear on my show together?" In the New York television station, especially in the program with the highest ratings, Irene's talk show, Irene had supreme power. She could easily change the theme and content of the program, including the guests, as long as she thought it was necessary. Chen Fei hesitated for a moment and declined politely. "Thank you for your suggestion, but I think it's more appropriate for me to sit in the audience. Lu Chen should be the only guest protagonist." Irene wasn't displeased by Chen Fei's refusal. Instead, she praised, "You have the heart of an angel." If it were anyone else, they would probably be overjoyed. However, Chen Fei didn't want to take away Lu Chen's attention at this time. This showed her deep love for Lu Chen. Lu Chen held Chen Fei's hand. Before he could speak, Chen Fei shook her head gently and firmly. She knew what Lu Chen wanted to say. But now, Chen Fei just wanted to sit in the audience and applaud him as an ordinary audience member. Lu Chen understood her insistence. He nodded and raised her hand to his lips to kiss it. Irene watched from the side, her eyes shining. She was touched and envious. The recording of the latest episode of Irene's talk show, on New York TV, began at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The 220-seat studio was already full. When the lights on the stage were fully lit and Irene Christian walked out of the backstage wearing a set of beige casual clothes, the audience burst into thunderous applause. "Irene! Irene! Irene!" All the audience stood up and applauded her arrival. These audience members weren't hired by the TV station. They were chosen from countless enthusiastic audience members by the TV station. They were all Irene's true fans. "Hello everyone." Irene greeted the audience with a smile. Then she walked to the front of the audience and shook hands with them one by one. Some of the audience members who shook hands with her were so excited that they shed tears. Irene hugged and comforted them. The 3 cameras faithfully recorded this touching scene from different angles. She interacted with the audience for a few minutes before returning to her own stage. As usual, Irene first complained about a few hot news topics. These news topics were closely related to the lives of Americans, such as the ongoing healthcare reform, immigration, and education issues. Irene's comments could be said to hit the nail on the head, and from time to time she made witty remarks. The applause and laughter of the audience never subsided. After telling a hilarious joke, she said, "After saying so much, I think everyone is looking forward to today's guest, right? Now let's welcome this guest to our show. Welcome Mr. Lu Chen from China, welcome the hero who saved Flight UD 725. Before the recording began, all the invited audience members didn't know the identity of the guest. So when they saw Lu Chen come on stage with a smile, they were silent for a moment before bursting into enthusiastic applause. In the past few days, Lu Chen was undoubtedly the most familiar Asian face to all Americans. His deeds were widely reported by countless TV stations and newspapers. He was one of the biggest hot topics in American society. Therefore, the audience was pleasantly surprised when Lu Chen appeared on Irene's talk show. Their welcome was sincere and sincere. At this moment, Chin Fei sat on the far right of the first row of the audience. Her eyes followed Lu Chen's figure closely as she applauded and cheered with the audience. This was Lu Chen's glorious moment, and it also belonged to her. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.